Oh, yes. Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy in Frame Sunday pregame show. I am your host, Gator J. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyJ77. Here with my esteemed co-host, Nate Markham at the bottom here, Jorge B. Edwards, and a special guest today, Mr. Rhett Manuel over there to my right. Guys, it is week 4. It is time to figure out, are you contending? Are you pretending? Are you ready to do this for week 4? Nate?
Yeah. It's, hell, we got 20 minutes until we actually get football in the background to distract us from what we're talking about. Perfect.
Absolutely. Jorge, we got the Jags and the Falcons. I forget their name because they're just north of me here in Atlanta. But good Lord, are you ready for a 9:30 Eastern game on a Sunday? We got games all day today. It's going to be beautiful for the next 2 weeks.
I am ready to drink this awesome cup of coffee that my lovely wife just brought down for me. So thank you, sweetheart. But yes, I am ready for some football all day. This is going to be a really good game. We got the Calvin Ridley revenge game narrative going on. Whether or not that goes on or not, we'll find out. So looking forward to it. And let's do this, man. Let's do this.
Absolutely. Rhett, appreciate you joining us this early morning. I know it's 8:30 your time, so let's dive into this Atlanta-Jacksonville game. Over under a 42.5. Jacksonville is favored by 3. Real quick, let's get to this question with JJ. Rhett, Burrow or Geno this week?
Listen, I'm really fired up about the upward trajectory of Joe Burrow. I mean, I have to ride with a guy who is notoriously a slow starter, but once he starts to get his sea legs a little bit, he fires up, and it may be about time for that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and trust the process and go with Burrow this week myself.
Yeah, Nate, are you worried about the Burrow against Tennessee? I know that's a great run defense, but I know on your show the other night you were talking about the secondary there of Tennessee.
Yeah,
do we feel like that's going to be a great matchup for Burrow and that wide receiving core of Cincinnati?
Should be. Yeah. Rhett calls them getting the C legs underneath them, but so far on the season, they look more like D or F legs because that calf injury has been a little worrisome. But this Tennessee pass defense is atrocious. I mean, it's been their biggest weakness. And is that a byproduct of their run defense being so good? Sometimes that's the case, but in this situation, they just don't have anybody on the outside. Injuries have depleted that defense. And even with a banged up calf, I'm leaning the Joe Burrow side as well.
Yeah, I think it's Burrow for me as well. Jorge, you got anything to add to this?
Nope, 100% on Team Burrow here. Although I love Geno this week. The pass rush for the Giants has been kind of non-existent, except for Kayvon Thibodeau. So I think Geno and the Seahawks are gonna roll on Monday night. But no, give me Burrow for upside this week. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100% there. All right, let's dive into this 9:30 a.m. We got about 20 minutes, like Nate said, for this game. Nate, what's going on over there in London? Who's out? Who's in?
Yeah, so the Jags 3-point favorites, implied over under 42.5. Zay Jones is out so far for the Jags. We know that. Antonio Johnson and linebacker Devin Lloyd. Atlanta's relatively healthy, so it will be. I'm no offense, but missing 2 of the 3. Losing Devin Lloyd's a pretty big deal, but not something that I don't think the Jags can overtake or overcome.
Rhett, what do you got on this game here in London? Who's like the player outside of like Ridley and Lawrence that you are definitely starting on your lineup this week?
I'm looking at FantasyData right now for their projections for the week, and one of the things I'm going to say is Oluokun against that Falcons offense. He is projected by FantasyData to be a top 24 player overall in fantasy this week in terms of scoring. So he's projected for about 15 fantasy points. So in terms of IDPs that you're going to want to start, you would plug and play him regardless this week. But that matchup with the fact that they are not a very good pass offense, the fact that they're going to funnel towards the run and you know he's going to stack up those tackles, I mean, you have to fire him up in a big way this week for sure.
Yeah, Jorge, I think Rhett might have just stole some of your thunder there with the IDP throw out.
I think he and Nate I think Nate and myself are kind of blown away with what just happened here. Rhett, we need to get you up early more often on Sundays to start talking some shop here.
We'll try.
Yeah, so, and Nate, correct me if I'm wrong here, with Lloyd being out, Chad Muma has an opportunity to step up here. We will see what that actually means. His production so far this year has not been great when given the opportunity, but opportunity will be on his side this week. Yeah, Aluakun, if you in a defensive back position, you always have Rayshon Jenkins, but for somebody that you're 100% starting on the Jaguars, it's Foyesade Aluakun. Absolutely.
Nate, what about the offensive side of the ball? What are we doing over there? I mean, this is as Jorge brought it up, the revenge game for Calvin Ridley, even though it's in London. How are we feeling about Calvin Ridley this week?
It's still a, hey, look at my new boyfriend, my new girlfriend, showing the ex exactly how that's going to work. And hopefully that's not what we've seen the last 2 weeks out of T-Law. The last 2 weeks have been a little rough. 60% completion, only 1 touchdown to 1 interception. It was last year at this time, well, not this time, but it was last year in London is when Lawrence really made that turnaround. So I think that this could be a good bouncing off point. Atlanta's not a terrible defense, but I think that they could lend some way to Jacksonville taking advantage. And like Jorge has alluded to before, the question is going to be just what type of matchup Calvin Ridley has. Jorge, what do you think? I mean, I know we've kind of went back and forth a little bit about opportunity for Calvin Ridley to go maybe on the opposite side of AJ Terrell, but are you leaning Terrell? Or if he doesn't, which angle are you going to go? Do you like Kirk better? Do you like Ridley?
Well, I like Kirk better overall just because of the matchup they have going on there. But football doesn't always go based off statistics. Sometimes narratives kind of win over here, and this is definitely an opportunity for Calvin Ridley. Although, you look at ball security, that's been an issue for him. I think he's had 4 drops on the season, if memory serves me correct. Ridley's been the more reliable wide receiving option. You mentioned Zay Jones. And let's face it, T-Law has more of a familiarity with Christian Kirk. We look back to last year. I think Kirk finished in the top 24 of wide receiver finishes and half PPR scoring. So there is something to be said about that. AJ Terrell is a great cornerback who has been shutting down opposing wide receivers left and right. And it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit before the show. If he shadows, which Nate, you brought up the fact that he hasn't so far this year, but if he sticks with Kirk throughout the day, it could be a long day for Christian Kirk. Not Kirk, Calvin Ridley. If he doesn't, Ridley should get the opportunity, assuming he doesn't drop the ball, literally.
Rhett, anything else you want to add?
Hold on. There is a...
Oh, you got a little drop. Wow. That is fantastic.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
JJ wants to know, is he crazy for starting Byron Young over Riddick or Landry this week?
I like Byron Young.
You do? Okay.
I do. I think I'm a fan. With the number of offensive linemen who are banged up for the Colts, I think this is a great opportunity. Aaron Donald should get his. And then because I think Ryan Kelly was questionable heading into today. I don't know if he's been declared out or whether or not he's active. But yeah, I actually like Byron Young this week over Reddick or Landry. Reddick has been non-existent, and Landry has been working his way back from injury. It's more of the Danico Autry show than anything else in Tennessee. So it's ballsy, but I like it.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's hard to recommend. JJ knows this. It's hard to recommend Hassan Reddick, but man, if there's a get right game, it's the Commanders for sure. I mean, Sam Howell's been sacked more than anybody else in the NFL, and the offensive line has shown at times to to start to put it together, but at the end of the day, they end up just, breaking down. And I have to assume, and this is only an assumption, is that if there's a likely game script to be trailing by enough that it's pass only, I would think that's Washington against Philly more so than the Rams against Indy with Richardson back. But I do like Byron Young, and I think that he goes very undervalued. And if there's a, 10-second platform for you and I to talk about him, I think he deserves it because, he leads. Well, he's second on that team in pressures just behind Aaron Donald. But you're right, Bernard Raymond is out, and that's probably more advantageous than Ryan Kelly. But at the same time, with Ryan Kelly being out, that means Aaron Donald should shine up the middle, therefore leaving more opportunities. It's going to be interesting to see how Anthony Richardson responds to a little bit of added pressure there. But I don't think you're crazy, JJ, but you just have to choose, do you want that boom of Reddick or that I think there's a more consistent floor with Byron Young? Right.
It's like, are you 0-3 and need to chase an upside play here, or is your record 2-1, 3-0 that you can go with the steady and do without upside?
What sucks is if he's 0-3, it's probably as a result of Hassan Reddick. He's like, this guy, I'm done.
Right. And watch like the week he benches him. It's like the week
I know. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Real quick reminder, if you're over there on Twitter and you want to interact with us, please jump over to our YouTube, jump in our comments. We will answer all of your start sits, any trade questions, any of that stuff. Try to get you ready for week 4. Again, we've got a game fixing to start here in about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes or so, with the Falcons and the Jaguars over in London. So if you've got questions on those two teams in particular, jump into the chat right now. Get those questions in here, and we will get those answered for you. Marco has a question: half PPR, Puka or Ridley?
Ooh. Okay, so I have thoughts.
Thoughts.
So Matthew Stafford was one of my starts of the week at the position, and I understand why that could be, why people might disagree, but just because the offensive line for the Rams isn't great in terms of pass blocking, but that just means more opportunity for Puka in the short to intermediate routes where he's kind of thrived. Whereas a Tutu Atwell, if Stafford can get some kind of protection, whether it's bringing Higbee down to block, makes Tutu Atwell a little bit more advantageous of a play because he'll have time to set up the deep passes there, where Atwell is one of the best rated wide receivers in passes of 10 to 20 yards or more, according to PFF. That being the case, it's hard for me to ignore what Puka has done this season. Yeah, last week was kind of a dud week. I'm going to roll Puka this week. Puka no matter what.
Yeah, I will throw this. I'll throw this out there. Indy's play in single high coverage about 71% of the time. That is for Stafford. He's 607 passing yards against that type of coverage, 73 attempts for 200 plus yards per game in that single high coverage.
Yeah, Jorge, if I could throw my 2 cents in there on Puka Nacua, you're talking about a dud game, which was a 5-catch for 72-yard game last week. So, I mean,
hey, compared to weeks 1 and 2, I mean, look, I'm just saying.
If that's the dud, we're sitting pretty, man. I would say roll Puka for sure.
Yeah, Puka throws a dud game and still gets what, 20 or 17 points or something like that. It was insane. It's sad when you got to call that a dud game.
Well, it's good if you're the Puka manager.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dynasty Deviant joining us in the chat. Appreciate you there. Should he watch it on ESPN Plus or should he watch the Toy Story version in Andy's room?
Toy Story, hands down. How often do you get that opportunity? Come on.
Well, here's my question. I posed this to Rhett earlier. Somebody put this on Twitter, and I thought it was a great line. Wish I could give them credit. What's going on, Albert? Appreciate you joining in the chat there as well. How many over under on how many times we get to infinity and beyond today?
Mm-hmm. I already love it. And if they don't do it, I'll do it. It's so good.
Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
Every time during the broadcast, he scores a touchdown or makes a crazy play.
Yes.
Infinity and Bijan. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you can't exactly just play out the jokes because it's like this 5-year-old who gets you to laugh one time and then they spam it 6 more times right after that. Yeah. I mean, we can't do the to infinity and Bijan more than once, in my opinion. So
Well, if they had done this game for last week, they would have only had to do it one time, because that's pretty much all that Bijan put up was one. A lot of expletives, maybe not kid friendly, but a lot of superlatives this week. Hopefully.
All right. Anything else we want to add to the Jacksonville Atlanta game at all? And then we'll get to JJ's question right here. We good on the Jacksonville Atlanta game as far as you guys are concerned? Sweet.
I think so,
One more. Start 2. Hufanga, Love, Neal, Thompson, Hill. Let's go with Jorge first.
Oh, I'm pulling out my rankings right now, so maybe
Okay.
you want to go to Nate real quick.
All right, Nate.
Yeah. I do have Hufanga the highest this week, and I'm bouncing back and forth just because I don't know what type of Arizona Cardinals team is going to show up. The team that I think everybody expects them to be, which is out of it by 9 minutes in, or the team that is in it until 9 minutes left, which is staggeringly confusing. But I am going to go with, I'm going to go with Hufanga simply because I think the Cardinals do lean heavy on James Conner, and Hufanga's going to will step up a little bit. And Dre Greenlaw hasn't been 100% healthy this week. He was saved by the interception last week, and so maybe he can get another pick. And then, Jorge, I'll let you choose the second if you agree with Hufanga. If you don't, I want to hear what one of yours is.
So going in terms of my rankings heading into this week, I have Love 3, Hufanga 5, Neal 9, Thompson 10, and Dax Hill 15. So I'll go with you on Hufanga, but I'm going to go Julian Love because you just love what he's been doing since his time in New York and now his time with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, same here. I will say there's parts of me that want to move Ryan Neal up just simply because if Jameis has done one thing consistently in his career is throw picks.
Let's hold off on the whole Jameis thing because it came out last night that there is a very likely possibility that Derek Carr will play today.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I know.
Did you see Eric Moody put on his Twitter page when they announced that Derek Carr might play, the scene from the GIF with the kid from Little Giants who's all covered in like mattresses, and he's like, "This is Derek Carr walking on the field today."
Exactly.
Oh, we got another one here with Dynasty Deviant. Ooh.
I got the board, Gator. Don't
okay,
worry.
all right. Half PPR, need one. Damian Pierce, Rashad White, Kamara, or Matt. How do you guys say it on Fourth and Frames? Medicine.
Yeah, medicine. Yeah. Oh, we are a very anti Alexander Madison podcast simply because of the fact that he's a guy who's under 4 yards carry for his career. I know he had one statistically good game last week, but I'm gonna say this: that New Orleans Saints offense, which has been predicated on throwing the ball to the running back for years, has really been missing that element, and it's shown through the first 3 weeks of the season. They've really done a lot with that intermediate passing game. They've tried to force Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed into that square peg with that round piece. So, I really think that you have a quarterback like Derek Carr or Jameis Winston, neither who are incredibly mobile. If you have that option to dump off to Kamara this week, he should do some pretty good damage in the pass game and hopefully actually give them some value in the running game because the Saints run game has been a 0 this season. So anything's better than what they've had. Rashad White hasn't really, no offense, Gator, he just hasn't shown me much so far this season. And I think Damian Pierce is off to a little bit of a slow start. So the lesser of these evils, I know Kamara's coming off of a 3-game suspension, but there's words that he's been working out. He's in game shape. He's all these different things. I get once the game starts a whole different animal, but good reports coming out. He's looked great in practice this week. I would roll Kamara this week, and that's not even a biased opinion for me.
Nate?
Yeah, I do think that it's easy to insert Kamara into this offense and be highly productive. I think this is that last situation that it's not going to be the last situation for Damian Pierce, but it's one of those situations where if he doesn't take advantage of a Pittsburgh defense that has allowed the third most rushing yards to actually produce at a high enough level, and I know that that's taking the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands, but not really. I think it's more it's more important to probably establish that ground game and keep some of the pressure off of CJ Stroud from this Pittsburgh pass rush. So I will lean Dameon Pierce over Kamara for one reason, is I don't 100% trust that they don't just screw us over and actually give the ball to, Kendry and Tony Jones and other things we don't want to see until next week.
Jorge, anything?
Man, it's down to Kamara or Pierce this week. You look at the pass rush for the Pittsburgh Steelers and you look at the deficiencies on the offensive line for the Houston Texans. What's the one thing that we all say when you're trying to negate a pass rush? You run the ball. I think volume is going to be on Pierce's side. That's the only reason why I'm leaning towards Dameon Pierce. But but at the same time, this is what you need. So I would roll Dameon Pierce in this matchup.
Yeah, and as I say, there's a chance Derek Carr could sit or could start. Our very own insider, Stacey Perez, comes in with Winston is just announced as the starter. So there is that.
Stick to the show sheet, Gator. That's
yeah.
That's why it's produced like this. Hours of effort and work put into it.
Effort and work. That's right.
Don't go off script. This isn't.
Hey, you know what? Stacey has this share sheet also. She could save this comment for a little bit.
That's right. That's right. Jamie Progue in the chat. Appreciate you joining us. We see you out there. Sitting Garrett Wilson for Pickens. How crazy is he, Jorge?
Not.
Okay.
Not
I didn't think
all.
it was that crazy either.
I do like the fact. Well, I don't like the fact for Pickens that Jalen Petrie is slated to come back this week after getting injured in week 1. It'll be interesting to see what kind of role he has in coverage, even though last year he played predominantly in the box, which made him one of the top defensive backs in all of fantasy football. But Zach Wilson, man, as long as Zach Wilson's the quarterback, I can't trust Garrett Wilson. So give me George Pickens.
That's also a very good Kansas City Chiefs defense that has emerged this year. And, you have L'Jarius Sneed and all these different guys, very good secondary as well. So, matchup based, the fact that George Pickens is the guy right now in that offense with Deontay Johnson being on IR in the pass game. I mean, you got to show a little more love to guys like Pickens and Freiermuth this week as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and just for everybody in the chat, we do have our super chats turned on. So if you want to, as we're going through these games, if you want something answered right away, do that super chat. We will get to that. We will stop what we are doing. Let's move on into the 1:00 games. We have Miami at Buffalo, the highest over under on the slate at 53.5. Who's in? Who's out, Nate?
Well, the big names, and there's not too many on the Miami side. Jalen Phillips, edge rusher extraordinaire, is out, and for Buffalo, strong safety Jordan Poyer is going to be missing this game.
Rhett, what do you got on this game here today?
Well, I'm gonna look at this, and I'm immediately going to gravitate towards the fact that after putting up 70 points last week, just from strictly a football perspective, you have a game like that. Just the law of averages tells me that Miami is going to come down to earth this week. Obviously, they have to, because you're not going to do 70 2 weeks in a row. And if they do, God help us all from a fantasy perspective. But looking at that offense, you have to gravitate toward the running game. Mostert and H.A. both had tremendous games last week. I was looking at the DraftKings stuff this morning. Mostert is one of the highest salaried running backs this week at 6,500. A-Chain's at 5,700. That's a little bit of a hard situation to predict. So in terms of that game, I think you have to go with the faithfuls. Josh Allen, show sheet says he's just owns Miami. So Stephon Diggs should be in line for a good game as well. James Cook is off to an incredible start. It's just going to be a very fun fantasy offense. So if you have guys from either of those teams that you can plug into your lineups that are one of the guys, even a Gabe Davis in a flex spot might be in for a good game this week. So, it's a fun one. It's a really good fantasy matchup. Should be a lot of points on the scoreboard, so there should be a lot of fantasy points as well.
Yeah, Jorge, speaking of the running backs here, are you starting a Chan over Mostert if you have that option, or is it Mostert the lead back?
It's Mostert. He is the lead back. They were just look. I love Achan. I think he's going to be fantastic one day, but let's just remember they were just pouring it on against Denver at a certain point. You look at some of the runs that he had, just the broken tackles that Achane had last week. Like, I don't think they were, obviously they're not expecting to put up 70, let alone have each running back have 5 touchdowns apiece, So I think we pumped the brakes. It's Mostert, barring an injury. And James Cook has been lights out for fantasy. He's like in the top 10 in half PPR scoring. You want more metrics about James Cook, go over and read my start and sit over at fantasyandframes.com. But, Jamie has right here, he's sitting Najee for Roshan. Shocker. If you watched any of our shows throughout the summer and in the fall, Jamie is a huge Roshan Johnson fan. I'm going to give Najee the benefit of the doubt one more week. Just because you look at the Texans are allowing the second most touchdowns scored to opposing team running backs, according to FantasyData. You look at the rushing attempts. That's on Najee's side. Yes, Jaylen Warren has the receptions that counterbalance that. And the Texans are allowing 20 fantasy points per game through 3 weeks to the running back position. This has to be his get-right game. If it's not, we got issues. We have continued issues, I should say. But I thought that was interesting what he's doing there, sitting Najee for Roshan. And I can't blame you for what he's been doing. But I have higher hopes for Najee though this week.
Yeah, Nate. Nathan H in the chat has Zay Flowers or Atwell in the standard league.
I'm going Zay in this matchup. I do like Tutu. And again, kind of going back to what you guys were saying about the single high safety and the production of Matthew Stafford. And I think that does allude to a positive game for Tutu Atwell. But it just seems like if you're eliminating some of the players, and when we get to Baltimore, you'll hear the laundry list of players that are out. It just seems like this is a situation against a really good Browns defense. I don't know why I'm not buying into the Browns defense as being locked down like they've been. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like this is that situation to exploit an area in the weakness, a weakness. It contradicts everything possible because Cleveland's allowed the fewest points to wide receivers. But I'm still leaning Zay. I am. Sometimes I know, as Jorge, we've talked for years that don't go with your singular gut sometimes if analytics prove otherwise. But in this situation, I just don't buy into Cleveland being as good as what we've seen for 3 weeks.
Jorge, anything?
I'll go the other side of the coin. I like Tutu. I think if Stafford gets time, Tutu not only has the edge and being able to pull down deep passes, he's had chemistry with Stafford. His only touchdown, Tutu Atwell. You look at the contested catches for Tutu Atwell. They've been pretty solid. And I just think he has, for a standard league, we're talking about yardage. We're not talking about receptions. I think receptions, if this is a PPR, half PPR, I would lean more Zay in that regard. Both I think should have great weeks. But just for a standard league, give me the home run yardage with Tutu here.
Yeah, and I'm going to chime in right here and say that maybe Tutu has a slight bit of rushing upside here too, so you might be able to sneak a couple fantasy points there as well. So, I think in that might be the kicker that puts him over the top because I'm seeing similar stat lines. But if Tutu gets a carry here and there, which Sean McVay loves to use that jet motion, he's done it for years now, then you might have to just lean Tutu in that situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I must have quit listening. I didn't see. I hadn't down the screen on where it says standard league. I just heard the two players' names. So I would think that in a standard league, not to change my opinion based on anything, but that's significant enough for me to change. So I lean with you guys as well for Tutu in that.
Rhett Oaks has a question here. Nico Collins or Mike Evans?
Listen, Mike Evans has been so good this season, and he's really been the guy in Tampa that I really have to look at that and lean Mike Evans. And also the fact that Houston, yes, they've passed the ball quite a bit, but there's really the guy in that offense on a week-to-week basis has fluctuated. You know, week 1 you had Robert Woods kind of was the guy. Week 2 was Nico Collins. Last week was Tank Dell. So how do you project who that guy is going to be in Houston this week? It's really hard to tell. So I would go with the guy who's been the most consistent across the board this season and go with Mike Evans in that situation.
Yeah, and to add to that, if Nate has his way, this week will be Dameon Pierce.
Of course.
I still want to be Nico. I still want to be Nico Collins. I still want to be Nico. I don't have Dameon Pierce anywhere, unfortunately.
If you have this choice and it's Nico Collins, or Mike Evans, knowing the history with Mike Evans playing up against Lattimore. Yeah. What are you doing, Nate?
That's the thing. Evans has averaged just under 3 receptions for 48 yards a game against the Saints since they drafted Lattimore back in 2017. The easy thing is to say, just buck the trend, and this is a different scenario now. He doesn't have, I don't know, Tom Brady, or he has Baker Mayfield. And it's not that Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans both aren't getting up there in age. It's hard to go against Mike Evans in this situation. But if you just take this scenario and you want to rely on what history's taught us, what is that they say? To avoid history, you're set to repeat itself or something.
Yes.
I don't know. Thanks. Perfect. Awesome. I'm real good.
Big history guy here.
Yeah. Shit. I still think I would go Mike Evans. I would go against everything that I want to trust in, just because he's been so reliant upon a quarterback. Like when it was Brady could very easily say, he's covered by Lattimore. I'm not going to chuck him the ball 11 times. I don't know if Baker Mayfield is that savvy to say, nope, I'm going to focus on, I don't know, another all-pro receiver in Chris Godwin. That would make sense. Or dump it off to Rashad White. No, I think he still force feeds Evans 11 targets, but I think he ends up with like 5 for 50, but he gets a touchdown. There you go. There's my projection.
I like it.
Also with Tom Brady, we would have had a big Scotty Miller week this week for some reason. So
or Justin Watson.
Can't have a big Scotty Miller because he's no longer on the team, right? He's up in Atlanta now. Or I'm sorry, over in London now.
I will say this about Nico Collins and Mike Evans. Mike Evans, we're assuming he's not kicked out of the game, ejected by the end of the first quarter because he's fighting. So that notwithstanding, Nico Collins, I want to give a shout out to Ryan Weiss from Club Fantasy because he brought up this point yesterday during their start and sit show. The conversation was Tank Dell or Nico Collins this week, and he was referencing that Nico Collins probably would not be the one he would start just because of the fact that Houston's offensive line is what it is. You got the pass rush from Pittsburgh coming their way. He probably doesn't have enough time to drop back and let those deep yardage plays develop with Nico, which could be, that's something to pay attention to. So yeah, I'm with the other guys, Mike Evans here.
Yeah, I'm a huge Mike Evans guy this week, even with the Lattimore thing. Again, you could have 25 pass interference calls between the two of them, and they're both out of the game by halftime. But it's still Nathan, pick 3. Hey, Nate, real quick. This is a standard league. Mixon, Ford, James Cook, or Zach Moss. Jorge, start with you.
I'm going to go Zach Moss. You look at his work over the years, more over the last game or so, right? It's been a game he's been back. More rushing attempts, not really used in a receiving game. James Cook would be 2, but again, more receiving upside there, not really helping you in standard. Zach Moss.
You pick 3 though. So who do you? Let's do.
Sorry.
Who would you sit of that group?
I would sit Jerome Ford. I would go Mixon, Cook, and Moss. Although I don't. No, actually, I take that back. I would sit Mixon.
Yep.
He's actually one of my sits this week. 2.5 yards per carry. I don't care what kind of running the Titans are allowing. No, sir. I would go Ford, Cook, and Moss.
You agree with that there, Nate?
Yeah. The fact that it's standard league takes away, because I would have elevated Mixon easily just based on the fact that I assume he would have 4 catches, and I think that would catapult him up enough. But without that, I think I'm going to sit Mixon as well. I hate Ford so much because I think last week was a good old fake. I mean, he ended up with decent production, but that was on the heels of 2 touchdowns, and I don't know. I'm going to sit Ford. I can't do it. I'm going to still stick with Mixon. I don't care. I'm doing it.
All right, Rhett.
Rhett, where are you at with this one?
God, I also called Joe Mixon a disgusting play this week on our podcast. But you want to talk about discussing stat lines last week? Jerome Ford having 10 carries for 19 yards was like super mega disgusting. So it's so hard. I mean,
yeah, but he's going against the same. Mixon's not going against the same defense that held Ford in check last week. So
it's Jerome Ford versus Joe Mixon. Come on. I know Mixon's been a little less than productive on a per snap basis, but he's still who's more likely to score a touchdown? Let's put it that way. Let's just go for the big points. Joe Mixon because Cincinnati can move the ball through the air, or Jerome Ford because they have no Deshaun Watson potentially. They have what? I just maybe that's me being I don't know that's a tough one. I feel like Mixon has a better chance to score a touchdown, and that's where I'll lead the point separation.
I'm going to pinch my nose and say Mixon right here, but I don't like either of those last 2 options. But if I have to choose one, let's go with Mixon in that situation.
Fair enough, actually.
Very, very fair. Jamie, good morning, Preston. Good morning.
Preston?
Jamie's got Miles Sanders, Dameon Pierce, or as he likes to call him, Alexander Mattison in a flex. Rhett, go ahead.
Let's go Pierce. Like we said, with the run game and everything, the fact that there is Dameon Pierce using that pass rush, they need to get some pressure off of CJ Stroud, who's been exceptional, but Pierce having a good game would make his life a little bit easier this week. I know the Miles Sanders matchup is a little bit rough as well, and Alexander Madison. See, you guys are throwing me off. Let's call him by his government name, Alex Madison. Never an option for me unless I'm absolutely in a pinch. So I'm going to go Pierce in this situation.
Nate?
I agree.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is questionable, but I believe per Ian Rappaport, he is slated to start. So you on the same side of this with Dameon Pierce there, Jorge?
Yes.
Awesome. Next one is from Oaks, Tutu Atwell, Nico Collins, Kyron Williams for a flex position. Jorge?
Kyron Williams.
Nate?
I agree. Kyron Williams.
And Rhett?
Yeah, Kyron.
Sam's got Debo, Metcalf, Pittman, Puka. Who should I sit in a 12-team PPR? Nate?
Oh, man.
Well, let's do this. Who are you not sitting right off? You're not sitting Puka right away, right?
I'm not going to sit Puka right away. He would be the easiest for me to say start. And let's see. Let me pull up my old
Rhett,
who are you sitting out of this group, Rhett?
I'm sitting Debo because I think Brandon Ayuk is in for a good week this week. I really like how the Colts have used Michael Pittman. DK Metcalf seems to have that trust of Geno Smith, and it's always a threat to have a big touchdown on any given week. And Puka, like we said, his worst game so far has been 5 for 72. So, they've really consolidated those targets around Tutu and Puka so far. So, I mean, you have to love all 3 of those situations. And with the Niners, we hate doing the too many mouths to feed narrative, but they're playing Arizona, and you have to imagine that they are going to get ahead healthily, and then you're probably going to see a low-key, sneaky, good Elijah Mitchell game this week if they get far enough ahead. So, but regardless, if they get far enough ahead in the first half, they're going to drain the clock in the second half and run the football. So I'm not sure if it's a really good spot for any 49ers pass catcher this week. So based off of that, I prefer Ayuk over Debo, but we're going to sit Debo among these 4.
Nate, you want back in?
Man, I actually the exact same thing that Rhett's saying leads me to pivot, away from Debo for that same reason. But it goes back to earlier. I don't know which Arizona team's going to show up. I think even regardless, the likelihood that who has the outside the wide receiver 3 outcome, I think Debo's the most likely of those 4 names. So I'll go with Debo's who I'm sitting.
Well, you keep saying which Arizona team is going to show up. I mean, they've been in every single game.
Correct. I'm thinking of the Arizona team that's in my head.
Right,
That,
exactly.
That should be there. What the team that I expected them to be, and how many weeks long does it take for me to say, nope, I buy into Joshua Dobbs and this Jonathan Gannon-led dumpster fire of what I think it's going to be, but maybe in 14 weeks, when it's week 18, and I say, well, the Falcons, the Cardinals, maybe they'll not be in this game again.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm a slow learner, guys. I still touch the stove sometimes and it's hot and
stick your finger in the electric socket and go, yep, it still works.
Too many shots and go, why'd I do this? But yeah.
Jorge, who are you sitting? Debo, Metcalf, Pittman, or Puka?
Debo, offensive line for San Francisco, defensive line for Arizona. I think they're going to be clashing all game. And Debo's been the primary first read at the wide receiver position, when both have been on the field. Really for the entire last season and into this year. So give me sit Debo, and I'd rather start Ayuk. But yeah, Metcalf, Pittman, and Puka in this question.
Awesome. Pierce or Pacheco? Right back at you there, Jorge.
Pacheco. I think they're going to run the clock out against the Jets tomorrow night. But it's Pacheco for me.
It's tonight, by the way. It's not tomorrow night, but it's
tonight. Right, sorry. Wrong New York teams. My bad.
I mean, they're the same team. They just wear different jerseys on whatever day they're playing, right? So, Rick, Pierce or Pacheco?
I agree, and we seem to be in lockstep on a lot of things today across the board. You probably feel like you need a little bit of divergence here, but I feel like Pacheco's the better player this week as well, too.
Well, you guys have talked about Pierce enough, and this one is actually throwing a different name out there with Pacheco, and I do agree. I think it's going to be a lot of Pacheco with the scheme or the game script of the game against the Jets. Even as good as that Jets defense is, both at the front seven and their back end, I do believe that with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, that game is going to get a little out of hand real quick, and then it's just going to be a Pacheco type of game. Nate, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's really close, though. I mean, I have them pretty much back-to-back, and I could understand anybody leaning either direction personally, but I still think I'll probably go Pacheco just in the case that the Chiefs, can get ahead enough.
Right on.
Yep.
One more from Danny Dimes or Dak. Right back at you, Nate.
Golly, I want to see Dak get better in the red zone. He's had so many attempts and he hasn't done shit with it. And I mean, I just got to think, I'm looking at this Seattle secondary that just allowed 350, 360 and a couple touchdowns to Andy Dalton. I would like to think that Danny Dimes can do the same, but I want to, it's crazy. I was getting ready to say, I was like, yeah, but what weapons does he have? Well, what weapons did Andy Dalton have? Adam Thielen? It's crazy to think that. So I'm going to lean Danny Dimes in this situation and just bank on the legs giving him the edge over Dak.
Rhett, you agree with that? Danny Dimes or Dak?
Yeah, and for all the same reasons he just said, like especially the rushing upside, Dak Prescott hasn't been very not great this year. Even when they had a 40-0 win over the Giants, he was not a huge role in that. I understand they were running the clock at that point, and the defense played a big part of that. But even at his best, he hasn't been very good this year. So let's go with Daniel Jones there.
And I'm assuming you are going to go the same way there, Jorge.
No, I have Dak at 14. I have Jones at 19.
Ooh,
relatively close. So I'm going to go Dak in this one. I just think, that's where I'm going. Daniel Jones is going to be just beat to what today or tomorrow night. I don't see it, even with the rushing upside.
All right, let's get back to the Miami Buffalo. Oh, we got another one. Hollywood, Nico or Palmer, full PPR. Rhett.
It's Nico time in this situation. I mean, Josh Dobbs has been a nice story, but even at his best, like we said, he's probably been on a 200-yard-a-game passer versus C.J. Stroud, who has been knocking on 300 every single week so far. And Josh Palmer, I know they threw the ball a ton last week, but Keenan Allen is healthy. Keenan Allen is coming off of a 20-target game. Keenan Allen is probably a healthy bet to have at least 10 to 12 targets again this week. So in this, I would go Nico Collins.
Jorge?
Yeah, Nico for me, even though Nico. Never mind. I was going to talk about targets and receptions, but no, give me Nico. He's versus Hollywood, I think, is questionable. Palmer, let's not forget about Gerald Everett coming back this week, although there is the debate between him and Parham. Parham having the 3 touchdowns in the season, but no Mike Williams. But anyhow, that's Anyhow, sorry that took too long. Nico.
Nate?
Yep.
Yeah, Nico. Okay. Judy, Hollywood, Pierce, half PPR. Nate.
Ooh. I'm gonna still lean Pierce. I think that a case can be made for Jerry Judy for sure. I just have to trust in the fact that I think Pittsburgh is gonna, secede a lot of touches to Pierce, and overall, I think that's where Houston needs this to happen. I think they really do. I know that they've been in games with Stroud, and that's been positive for them. But I think establishing a run game is going to keep the offense moving in the direction that they really want it to eventually become, which is not so pass dependent in doing so. And I think this is so far the best get right game for Pierce.
Yeah, I would probably lean Judy right there. I think going up against that Chicago defense, I think that's going to be especially after getting 70 put on them last week. I think the offense for Denver is going to come out firing on all cylinders. Rhett, Judy, Hollywood, or Pierce and a half PPR?
Judy, Hollywood, or Pierce, half PPR. Give me Hollywood in that situation because we have the toilet bowl between Denver and Chicago going down today. Not sure what we can truly expect in that one offensively. Hollywood Brown has been him and Zach Ertz and James Conner have been pretty solid fantasy plays so far this year, especially Conner and Ertz. So just go ahead and give me Hollywood and half PPR. Yeah,
you can call it the toilet bowl all you want to, but Russell Wilson has thrown for 300 plus yards in the last 2 games.
Yeah, he's been pretty solid for sure.
Yeah. Jorge, you good? Which one are you with there? Judy, Hollywood, or Pierce? Half PPR.
Man, you can't ignore Denzel Mims, although the target volume is leading Jerry Judy. I think I'm going to roll with Judy in this one. I just think Denver is going to come out and just set the world on fire just to show off, they got blown out by 50 points. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then
Pierce, let's get back to the Miami Buffalo. We talked a little bit about the offensive side of the ball there. Tua QB3 on the season. Bills have allowed the second fewest points to QB. Who breaks, Nate? You're muted.
I didn't mute myself. I didn't think. Bad. Sorry about that. I admit it's a very tricky one. If I'm looking at the defensive side of it, I'm gonna lean Miami just because I think the offense, despite how good Buffalo's been on D, Miami's just rolling right now, and I feel like Josh Allen is a little more turnover prone at this point than Tua. Man, yeah, I'm gonna go Miami plus the 3 points.
With this game being the highest on the slate as far as over under at 53.5, is there a absolute starter either side or either team on IDP? Jorge.
Oh yeah, Javon Holland is my DB1 for the week. This guy has been crowding the line of scrimmage, has been just locked in. It's crazy because he was drafted as more of like a free safety, / hybrid cornerback. Did amazing things at Oregon, and now they're playing him closer to the line of scrimmage. Absolutely. Terrell Bernard is coming off a huge game last week. Nate, you could probably speak to their pass rush a little better. Again, no Jordan Poyer this week. DeMar Hamlin should be starting, although you're not starting DeMar Hamlin in IDP. He just hasn't been that type of player. David Long, Nate, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. So what we've seen is that last time when the Dolphins didn't have Jalen Phillips, Andrew Van Winkle played more on the edge, and David Long filled in more in the middle and got the most snaps that he had seen and turned those into actual production. That's another thing too, is that David Long in coverage has been a little bit of what I've heard is a little bit of a liability. And that's why they had been cycling him out. And you would think against a Buffalo led team that they're going to, be cautious with that, but I don't think so. I think this is a situation where David Long's going to be in. I don't know if I'm starting him per se. I agree with Jorge. Javon Holland is definitely the must start there. And then there's no Jordan Poyer. So there's no safeties that I'm terribly worried about as far as scoring on Buffalo's side. So I think that's pretty much the majority. I don't trust Bradley Chubb either. As you know, it's easy to say, oh no, Jalen Phillips, maybe Bradley Chubb, but I'm out on that. So I think just those 2 or 3 guys from this matchup that we'll see some fireworks.
Yeah, and real quick, for those that don't have ESPN Plus or Disney Plus, Calvin Ridley wide open 30-yard touchdown. So, yep, they are on the board 7-0, wide open. They are up 7-0. They're in London. The London Jags are leading. I want to look at this parlay real quick. I just want to look at this real quick. Rhett, I want your opinion on this. Here's a parlay for y'all that's 100% going to hit. Roshan over 32.5 rushing and over 1.5 receptions. Agree, disagree?
Yeah, that's a strong parlay if you're going to see one. I mean, 32.5. Not an especially high number, especially for a guy whose snap share has gone up on a weekly basis. Also, a guy who has been their primary work in the pass game, so 1.5 receptions, give or take 33 rushing yards. So 2 receptions and 33 in order to hit. I say that feels fairly safe, but it's gambling. These lines are there for a reason, so they know more than we do.
True.
Yeah, that one right there will take us into the Denver-Chicago game. Nate, who is out in this game for you?
Well, so on the Denver side, Josie Jewell is a massive loss from an IDP standpoint. Frank Clark is out across the defensive line, which is not shocking at all to me for watching Frank Clark all those years. Mike Purcell is out across the defensive line, and then Justin Simmons is questionable. Not sure if he's going to play. I think it was trending in the bad direction, but something to pay attention to. On the Bears side, Eddie Jackson is out, and then Jalen Johnson is out as well. So some significant names for sure.
Well, Jorge, on the IDP side of things with this game, is there, we saw the Denver defense give up 70 last week. Chicago's not been that great. Is there anybody that we're absolutely playing?
For Denver? I mean, yeah.
Denver or Chicago, either one.
Yeah, so Alex Singleton is, a hashtag tackle machine. Drew Sanders, was a defensive line / linebacker eligible player, but didn't really do much last week, with the Jewell injury. He is a rookie, so that's somebody who I'm probably avoiding this week. For Chicago, Tremaine Edmonds, which words I never thought I would say if he was still in Buffalo. And then I like TJ Edwards. Somebody who I am not shocked that hasn't been performing too well is Jaquan Brisker from a fantasy standpoint, just because Chicago relied on him for a lot of tackle work, just because their linebacking core last year was utter garbage. Mm-hmm. Now you bring in these 2 elite linebackers. There's not really a need for him to creep up closer to the line of scrimmage, and it's shown from his fantasy production using Fantasy Pro scoring.
Rhett, the Broncos and the Bears, both bottom 10 teams against QBs. Is this a get-right game for Fields? Are you starting either one of these quarterbacks? Rhett, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. So starting either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, I would lean Wilson in that situation because Justin Fields has not been exceptional, as we previously discussed. Wilson has had over 300 passing yards each of the past 2 weeks. This feels like one of those games where neither defense has been great, and It could be sneaky high scoring this week, despite the fact that neither team has been great and somebody has to win. So it's a potential Justin Fields get right game. But I'm going to go with who has been better so far this season, who's been more consistent. Denver and a Sean Payton offense has done a pretty good job of throwing the ball, despite the fact that they're 0-3. So I would prefer Wilson this week over Fields, but wouldn't be shocked if Fields snuck up and actually had a pretty good game this week.
Nate, you got the note in here that Denver has allowed 10 touchdowns, of course, rushing touchdowns, and a lot of that has to do with last week,
Of course.
With Miami. Are you comfortably starting Herbert?
Comfortable? Probably not. But I do like Herbert more this week than most. I despite the Roshan increasing workload, I still believe that Khalil Herbert against this Denver team without Alex Singleton, which is helpful because I don't know in this linebacking core without Josie Jewell. I'm sorry. And Justin Simmons, I just feel like Khalil Herbert has that opportunity to get past the second line of defense and actually break one for us, which is what we've been hoping for the entire season. But this Chicago offense has been so bad. It's just, I think out of the backfield, we'll see the catch volume increase a little bit and support a RB2 this week.
Okay. Is Cortland Sutton underappreciated, with 27 and 29% target share the past 2 weeks? I know we had a question earlier, and we a couple of us, I believe, both Jorge and I said put Judy in. But is Cortland Sutton somebody that you are absolutely starting because the target shares that he gets there, Jorge?
Let me pull it. Let's see what he's done with this target share so far this year. Let's see here. Cortland Sutton, 23 targets, 17 receptions, 2 touchdowns, 11.8 fantasy points and half PPR scoring. Absolutely starting? No. If I don't have a better option, sure.
Is he a flex play then? That's where you're going to put him as a flex.
I feel comfortable as a flex play, yes.
All right, Nate, IDP side for the Broncos pass rushers. Talk to me.
Yeah, man, I wish I could tell you that everybody could be in line for a fantastic game. Chicago over the last 2 years, we've seen that they are allowing, the more sacks per drop back than anybody in the NFL. And so the question is it Randy Gregory? I think we've seen what we can see out of Randy Gregory, which is low floor, somewhat of a high ceiling at times. The person who I really like, and I wish I could see more snaps of him, is Nick Benito. His pressure rate's been excellent. He's shown an ability to get to the quarterback, not necessarily with unlimited snaps, of course. I just don't know if he'll see enough of those snaps with the this specific week.
All right, Rhett, I know you got to get out of here. Tell the good people what you got going on real quick before you head out.
I can be found on Twitter at rmanuelsports. I am currently trying to win as many fantasy leagues as I can this year and hopefully have a little more success in the Scott Fish Bowl. Really, primarily, you can catch us Wednesday on 4th and Frames at 9 Eastern. Drew, my co-host Drew Scott and Chris Battistell are doing excellent work over there as well. That's where you find me on Wednesday night. We have a good time as always. So yeah, there.
Yeah, y'all are absolutely crushing it on Wednesday night. So we appreciate you joining us today. Let's roll on into the next game here. Get you out of here. Appreciate it one more time.
Thanks, Rhett.
Thank y'all.
Let's move over to the Baltimore at Cleveland over under of 39. Nate, Rashad Bateman, OBJ, Marlon Humphrey. Who else is out?
David Ojabo, Dofi Owe, pass rushers galore for Baltimore, secondary galore for Baltimore, wide receivers galore for Baltimore. It's a walking wounded, if you will. And on the opposite side for Cleveland, the biggest question is going to be Deshaun Watson. We've seen a questionable tag placed on him. He came in, could throw 4 passes in practice, and then got pulled from practice. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that would be a positive momentum for him heading into this matchup.
Yeah, and if he doesn't start, then it's DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Can you start him up against the Baltimore D? I mean, even in a super flex?
I don't know. I tell you what I love though is the one thing that we've preached for past couple of years now about every quarterback that has rushing upside. Konami code, cheat code, and that's what he has. He demonstrated that in preseason. He's demonstrated that in college. I don't know. I don't know if I would feel comfortable starting him in a superflex, but given the nature of superflex leagues, there's some situations where people are probably without Carr or sitting at a situation where they have to look at someone like, I don't know, Ryan Tannehill or some of those other names. I would put Thompson above some of those names. I would say that this is scary. Jorge, tell me if you think how crazy it is. I might actually put him right around Sam Howell this week.
Ooh.
I don't know whether to be impressed by the ballsiness or insulted that you think that low of Sam Howell. So I'm just going to shake my head in confusion, not in disappointment, because I don't know what to make of that.
Is it possible? Have they changed the NFL rules that you gain fantasy points by being sacked? Because I get the feeling I'm worried that that's what's going to happen to Sam Howell a lot in this game. And I don't know. Maybe you play in a league that gives you points for being on your back.
If that's the case, go for it. Absolutely.
The Brazzers League is only points for when you're on your back.
Wait, hold on. I have a drop for this.
Oh no!
Oh no!
I don't think that's allowed.
Hold on.
Well, don't get us canceled. It's not even. It's just now 10 o'clock.
Hold on one second. There we go.
Oh Lord have mercy.
Drop. What?
Well, we I guess, we talked about DTR and he's probably not a start. I know, Jorge, you're shaking your head the whole damn time as Nate's trying to figure out how to fit DTR into a lineup and who he's going to put him over and all. Lamar up against this Cleveland defense, who's been pretty damn stout.
Yeah,
is he a must start?
No, he is not a must start. Cleveland Browns are allowing 6.2 points per game to the quarterback position on the season. The Ravens are out Ronnie Staley this week, their left tackle. Center Kyle Linderbaum is questionable. The replacement left tackle, Patrick McCary, if I'm saying that correctly, has already allowed one sack last week to Indianapolis. Zay Jones, Mark Andrews, those are pretty much the receiving weapons. I think Baltimore is going to go after Lamar. I understand Lamar has rushing upside. Just to give you an idea of quarterbacks I'd rather play than Lamar Jackson. Hopefully you're starting Trevor Lawrence in replace of Lamar, CJ Stroud, Geno Smith, Richardson. Hell, I even have Stafford, Fields, and Prescott ahead of Lamar. I think this, if anything, this is a Gus Edwards game, to be honest with you, more so than I think it's a Lamar Jackson game. But that's just my take there.
Yeah, I mean, you went right to my next two questions where would you have him as far as, how far are you dropping Lamar down with this game? And then, of course, how does the Ravens backfield shape up? And you brought up Gus Edwards there. Nate, do you agree with the take that Jorge just had right there?
I do for the most part. I have to be convinced of why. And I don't know what it is about this Browns D that has me kind of shaking my head in uncertainty. And I think that, when we go back to the question about quarterbacks, sure, I know that they're not allowing points. And one of those was a game against Joe Burrow, week 1, which is important. But it's also been Kenny Pickett and Ryan Tannehill. So this is by far their biggest threat, but they've done everything. So it's not even just quarterback. I mean, if you look at the running back situation, they've been stingy against running backs. They've been stingy against wide receivers. Cleveland's just a good enough team that I am actually contemplating sitting Lamar. I'm sitting Lamar for Anthony Richardson in one league. That's I don't know how spicy of a take that is, but that's a scenario that I'm doing.
So same question for Cleveland. And are you starting, I guess we kind of talked about this whether they start sit earlier, but Jerome Ford got saved by multiple TDs last week against the Titans with one rushing and one receiving. Is Jerome Ford even a flex play this week?
I don't want to flex him. I think that it's probably it's pretty polarizing to determine what type of usage Kareem Hunt's going to have in this offense. And I think there's, a non-zero chance that Kareem Hunt is the lead back for this team. But I don't know if I want to go on a limb yet and say that. I just think they eat into each other's significant, their workload enough that I'm probably shying away from a lot of pieces in this game as a whole. I think this might be, Amari Cooper could be more of an avoid. I think both quarterbacks could be in its tough spot. Both running back situations could be I mean, I don't know. Jorge, any addition?
I mean, I think volume is going to be on Ford's side, but again, the involvement, like you said, of Kareem Hunt makes you wonder. Although having no Deshaun Watson, if he does not play, I think kind of helps Ford's value a little bit there. That has not been determined as of yet. I think that's going to be like a game or a warm-up decision in the next hour or so, which will still be here. I can't recommend Jerome Ford this week. Granted, it depends on your options, but I'm not excited to start Jerome Ford to answer your question. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's flip it over to the IDP side here real quick. Clowney, starting Clowney.
I think you're almost, I won't say forced to, but what he's done so far on the season is lead that if you're in a deep enough league, he's not a DL 1 or 2 for me. He would be really in that DL 3 conversation. Jorge, how high do you have Clowney this week?
I have him kind of low, although I do like his production. The thing I like about Clowney is it's weird and it's ironic that he's going against Cleveland, because for years it was Garrett's the pass rusher, Clowney's the run stopper on opposite ends. But Clowney's been good both rushing the passer in terms of pressures as well as helping in run stopping. So if we're looking, we're talking about like the Jerome Fords or the Kareem Hunts, that kind of helps Clowney's upside there, right? If they go to a more run-heavy offensive script. I'll probably have him slided into.
He's lower than that for me. I'm looking now. Yeah, I even have him low. Like, I don't know why I said DL3 just instinctually, but he's closer to that DL 5 spot. He's right around that. He's not too far away from Chase Young, if that says something about his spot.
Jorge, what other IDP guys are we looking at for this matchup with Baltimore and Cleveland this week?
I mean, obviously, you're starting Myles Garrett. He's top 3 for most people, top 5 for most people. Grant Delpit is another one, defensive back here. In terms of Cleveland, that's pretty much all. I would love to say Zadarius Smith, but the guy just hasn't been producing. If it was Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, or OGOK as we dub him,
breaking news. Breaking news. I am sorry, but Ian Rappaport just reported Derek Carr will start.
So he will be like the kid in Little Giants with the phone around him.
Yep, Derek Carr will start today despite the AC joint injury. Sorry, Jorge, go right ahead.
That's pretty much, if it's Okoronkwo starting full set of snaps, I'd be all up on his upside here, but that's not the case. So for Cleveland, that's not. Those are the two that really stand out: Garrett and Delpit.
All right, let's move over to Cincinnati and Tennessee over under a 41.
Let's get to Baltimore's IDP real quickly. Nate,
go ahead. Nate muted again. He is being such a professional today when he's doing these.
Yeah, no, I thought you had asked about Clowney earlier, and Roquan and Patrick Queen are must starts. The question is going to be, is Kyle Hamilton going to be involved nearly as much? I mean, I know he's around the box or at the line of scrimmage in the box quite a bit. I think without the pass rushers, he was asked to blitz a lot last week. Obviously, it was productive. So the question then is, will that be the same type of approach that they will have this week? I don't know if that'll be the case. I think that obviously if you are trying to rattle either an already hurt Deshaun Watson and or DTR, then I would say yes. So I still have Hamilton as a must start defensive back.
All right, Jorge, I'm going to let you go ahead and get to this question right here, and I will be right back in just a minute.
Sounds good. So pick one running backs one flex in PPR. Ramondre Stevenson at Dallas, Alexander Madison, Devon Chen, Brandon Ayuk, Brian Robinson Jr. Nate, you want to start, and I'll go second.
Yeah, I'm gonna still take Ramondre. I know Dallas is a tough matchup, but I think that the reason why I don't fall prey or trap to this Zeke revenge game after last week's performance. Personally, I know that they may leave Zeke in to try to stop Micah Parsons and company from getting to Mac, because Zeke is from what I've heard, a better pass blocker still at this point. But I think that the passing game will lean in Ramondre's favor. And I think that's what's going to happen, is they're going to need Ramondre to catch enough balls out of the backfield. I wouldn't be shocked to see his receiving yardage exceed his rushing yardage. And as we know, pass receptions in fantasy are worth about 4 times as much as a rushing attempt, almost 5 times as much. So I'll lean Ramondre, who is that as my running back. Who would you have as your flex?
It's Ayuk. I look at Madison. We don't know if Akers is going to get a bump and roll this week. Not to mention Madison has been really inefficient. Chan, we talked about Raheem Mostert being the lead back there. Brian Robinson going against that interior front for Philadelphia, not looking good. Ayuk, again, primary first read to Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, all the quarterbacks he's had the past season and a half. So give me Ayuk in the flex for PPR.
Nice. I like it. It's hard not to want to go a Chan after what we saw last weekend and the murmuring and the rumbles that he's going to be more productive or more involved in this offense. If you I almost said wasted. I meant to say spent. I'm not going to say waste, because I invested some of my fab into a Chan as well. But if you picked him up, you're not going to go buy what you think is a Lamborghini and sit it in the driveway. You're probably going to play him with the upside. And I don't know if that's a wise investment. You bought the Lambo, first day you want to have it out, it's pouring down rain. Do you still drive it because you have it? No, you wait until sunnier days are out. And I think that's what this is it's not a sunny day for a Chan against a Buffalo defense that can be very stingy.
Speaking of Lamborghinis, did you see the short that it was Marshawn Lynch showing up to Jets MetLife and talking to Aaron Rodgers, and he went to Aaron Rodgers. So I had to do an interview with Barry Sanders for Thursday Night Football in Lambeau Field. So he's like, "Did you hear I showed up to Lambeau Field in a Lambo?" I thought that was kind of fun.
That's great.
I
love Marshawn
gotta
Lynch.
love it. All right, let's carry on until Gator gets back. Cincinnati at Tennessee. Out Irv Smith Jr., Elijah Molden, Treylon Burks. Let's start off with the quarterback situation here, and I'm not talking Ryan Tannehill, who's been anything but since 2019, 2020. Joe Burrow's calf. Look, things haven't been clicking. Burrow's working his way into it. T. Higgins is dropping balls. I don't know if that's a horrible phrase to use or not, but let's just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon have been the saving grace from a reception upside as well as from a rushing upside. We talked about the Titans and how stingy they are against the run. What are your thoughts on Joe Burrow? Are we taking injury out of the equation and just going in with the assumption that he's healthy, ready to go, and is getting ready to torch Tennessee's secondary, which, again, we talked about and you and Hollywood talked about on Shoot the Gap, is really susceptible to the pass, just like what happened with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Are you 100% confident in Joe Burrow this week? I guess that's what I'm asking you.
Yes, I am. I am 100% confident that if in a one quarterback league, I am not starting too many other players that I would see as an option over him. I know that that's kind of vague in regards, but
no.
I have him, firmly in my QB1 spot. I think that I'm worried a little bit about the calf in a re-aggravation and his limitations to throw. And the deep pass we've seen has been pretty bad as a result. But I still think that this is a secondary that's just such a funnel that he should be able to put up 300 and, a couple scores. And T. Higgins won't keep getting, 8 receptions and or 8 targets and turning that into nothing. I think that's, those.
Look at Rachel.
Rachel in the chat. Thank you very much for donating to us. We really appreciate it. Really appreciate your patronage and everything you say about us on Twitter and reaching out and being in the chat during these shows. Thank you very much. If you have a question, drop it in there.
She does have a question right here.
Let's go.
Yes. Need two. Myers, Lockett, Sutton, Thielen, or Palmer? Let's start with you, Nate.
Okay. I love what Jacoby Myers has done on the season to start. I worry about Aiden O'Connell being the starter there and what that can mean if that's anything besides Devontae Adams. I personally, as you know, as I said earlier about Cortland Sutton, am a fan of that. I will say that, shockingly, Adam Thielen is going to be one of my starters this week. Against a Minnesota pass defense that we know is weak, he's been more than successful. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely lunacy that Adam Thielen, old man Thielen, has been he's the wide receiver 4 overall over the last 2 weeks. And he's been a wide receiver, I think a wide receiver 2 is an absolute safe floor. And of those names, I'm going to start with Thielen. I'll let you guys either agree, disagree, or add to that.
Well, Jorge, I want to ask you this about Thielen. It looks like Bryce Young is going to be the starter this week. It was the Red Rocket last week with Andy Dalton, who just absolutely peppered Thielen. 14 targets to Thielen, catched 11 of them. Can we expect Bryce Young to be able to pepper Thielen the same way?
Can we expect him to do that? I think he's going to have to. Minnesota is going to be throwing all over the field. They're going to be in catch-up mode. He's going to have to go to a reliable target. I think that will be Adam Thielen. The thing. So I agree with Thielen as one of them. Now, here's the thing. I really liked what I saw from Aiden O'Connell in the preseason. And yes, we're just talking preseason, but he looked really damn good. And with Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams dominating the target share in Las Vegas, I almost said Oakland. If this question came to me next week, I would be on board the Myers thing. But we don't know what's happening, with him, with Aiden O'Connell. So I'm going to go with Lockett. Like I said, I think the Seahawks are going to roll the Giants. So give me Lockett and Thielen in this situation.
Yeah, I'm a little scared with the Thielen thing. But the one thing that I do like with Myers is with like you brought up Aiden O'Connell in the preseason, they're going up against the Chargers in that game. And we know the Chargers are going to throw the ball down the field. So game script shows that it should be a passing game. Now, is it Myers or is it Josh Jacobs for outside of course, Devontae Adams? But I think it is Sutton and Thielen for me as well when it comes down to this question. Rachel, thank you so much for that. Guys, yes. And so I don't know where you guys were at with these games, so go right ahead. Cade's got this question, 10-man PPR. Keep 4. Just got offered Higgins for Metcalf for Lamb and Lockett.
So it's a 4-man keeper league. So here's the thing that worries me is I don't know where Higgins is going to end up. And I know that sounds cryptic because that's saying I don't think he's going to re-sign with Cincy. And I don't think he will. I think he'll end up somewhere else. And I don't know what that would do for his value. And there's multiple trains of thought. He goes and he becomes the number 1 somewhere. And is that advantageous to him versus being the number 2 with Chase taking some of the attention? Or does he go to another team where he's still the 2 on you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the passing volume will be there. I would probably keep Lamb and Lockett just because I think I like CD as the best of those 4. Jorge, what do you think?
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, I like CD in PPR. I like CD in any format, really. So there is the upside there. He is the number 1 weapon in Dallas, aside of Tony Pollard. Yeah, if you're in win now mode, if you have a locked roster here, I'm saying Lamb and Lockett. If you're in a situation where you're 0-3 and you need this upside for this year, I'm assuming, yeah. Let me not go down that road. Lamb and Lockett, I would stand pat there. In regards to Gator, though, you mentioning finishing up this game, let's quickly do that. So we already went through Mixon, not an ideal matchup. We talked about this earlier in one of the start sit questions. Some of us are pro starting him. Some of us are like starting him but not liking it, just given the fact that the Titans have been so good at stopping the opposing team's running backs on the season. But speaking of running backs, let's get to Derrick Henry. Injuries. The toe injury is a thing now. He was outsnapped by Tajay Spears, 56 to 38%. In redraft, it's kind of hard. You're hoping. I mean, he's the only thing really the Titans have this week with no Treylon Burks, and DeAndre Hopkins. Is a shell, I think. Although I think last week he had a decent game. If memory serves me correctly. I don't know the top of my head, but I think this is going to be more of like let's keep Cincinnati off the field in their passing game. Let's run the ball. Let's control the time of possession. But I don't like it because of the toe injury. And so you really have to ask yourself, do you have a better option, a more upside play at running back than Derrick Henry? He's my running back 14, so I don't, while I say all that, he's firmly an RB2. But if this is Dynasty, if this is a Dynasty situation, I think your window on trying to get a first-round pick for Derrick Henry is already faded away, just given with his age and just the mileage, and now the injuries are piling up. So I guess it depends on what your expectations are in terms of what you're getting for him from a Dynasty standpoint. For redraft, like I said, you're starting him, and you're feeling somewhat confident about it.
Nate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly what Jorge said. There's concerns, of course, with injury usage. We do know that Derrick Henry, as we get closer to winter, is when he really turns on the juice and really delivers all of your fantasy value. And if you go into the fantasy playoffs, if Derrick Henry's still on Tennessee, I think that's something to consider too. There's rumblings that could Derrick Henry be somebody that another team in real NFL would be interested in adding to their team? And you have to wonder what effect that would have, positively or negatively. But I don't know if you can sell Derrick Henry and get good enough value that is offsetting the potential upside that he has. So I'm going to say I'm holding Derrick Henry at this point.
Oh, that's so, I guess at the end of the year last year, I was on board of selling Derrick Henry. I don't know that you can get value for him that you could at the end of last year, especially now with Tajay Spears has, or Jorge brought up, already out snapping him. Can you trust Tajay Spears this week to even start in a flex right now over a Derrick Henry?
Not over Derrick Henry.
No. Let's not get crazy here.
Well, the reason I asked the question is just because when you look at the snap share of 56 to 38 snap share, that's why I think it's a valid question to ask.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's not insignificant, but look at it from this narrative. Okay, well, he outsnapped Derrick Henry by that much. That theoretically should mean that Derrick Henry had even more time heading into this week to recuperate. So from the toe injury, so maybe that's the case.
The other side of that coin is they were playing against the vaunted Cleveland Browns D as well. So neither one of them really did a ton in that game. Have you guys talked about the IDP side of the ball for this game yet?
No, we were about to get to Tyler Boyd and whether or not he's a deep flex option. Last season, if this was last season, I would have said no because we looked at the usage. It was Chase and Higgins, and Tyler Boyd just kind of faded off into obscurity. This year, he's been stepping up. I mean, he's not too far away in terms of targets. He just 8 away from T. Higgins. But the lack of touchdowns, the yardage has been there, but the lack of scoring, is problematic. Is he a flex option? You can probably find somebody better than Tyler Boyd.
That full PPR with Boyd is intriguing only because I think I think it lends to the Burrow calf. We saw Burrow unable to feel comfortable with the deep ball, and I think those short to intermediate routes that Tyler Boyd was just sitting down in led to the reason why he's had 17 targets over the last 2 weeks. I think that's been the saving grace for him, is strictly in PPR target and hopefully reception upside. Yardage touchdowns probably won't be there.
Yeah, my concern real quick with Boyd is you mentioned he got 17 targets. He's caught 11 of those, but it's still less than 100 yards combined in those 2 games.
Correct.
No touchdowns.
Let's
go ahead,
finish with some IDP. Nate, it's one of the questions I dropped in the chat for you all on Shoot the Gap on Friday. I know Kevin Byard is the big name there in the secondary for Tennessee, but Amani Hooker has been playing pretty lights out from the tackle department. What are your thoughts on him, as well as other people on the Tennessee Titans, as well as the Bengals this week?
Yeah, the Byard Hooker conundrum is challenging because they're basically playing the same usage in terms of position on the field. They're both about the same amount of box snaps, both about the same amount of deep snaps, both about the same amount of slot snaps. And so then it's just a matter of really timing of when one of them's in the ideal scenario, because we've seen an alternating production, at least as far as high end, between the two. It doesn't make me want to start both, doesn't make me want to sit both, but I like Kevin Byard more for if there was a big play waiting to happen. And I think that it's necessary to really propel up high enough. Azeez Al-Shaair over the middle is always nice. I think the one thing with Cincinnati that we hadn't seen is them lending to a high linebacker tackle volume, but I think that can change with Burrow being less than 100%. So I don't mind Azeez Al-Shaair. He's not real high, but he's 100% of the snaps, and I'm pretty good with having somebody of that caliber, as a LB3 for me. And then at the defensive line, the Cincinnati offensive line is going to try to keep Burrow upright. He doesn't have much mobility. Jeffrey Simmons is a stud. Danico Autry's been a pressure monster. So I like Danico Autry as a late DL play this week as well.
I got a question here from Adrian. Start 2-2. Javonte Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Tank Dell. For me, it's 2-2 and Tank Dell. The bookends here. Nate, what are your thoughts here?
Man, it's really tough too. I want to buy into Javonte this week against the Chicago, run D that's just been terrible. I mean, Chicago's allowed 7 touchdowns on the ground. Through the air, Javonte's getting more, and Samaje Perine hasn't been as utilized as I had expected. And so I think this might be one of those just get right games where we see Javonte get back into that 60-70% of the rushing attempts. He double-digit target percentages is something he had done in 2 of the 3 games. So I will lean Javonte, and then a second one's tough for me because I trust in what I've seen out of Tank Dell, but I'm going to lean Jerry Jeudy. I hate to take 2 from the same team. It's like, oh my God, but against Chicago, oh God, I'm sorry, Adrian. This is just a lot of stammering and a lot of uncertainty because I don't know which area I feel more comfortable in. So here's my final answer. Javonte Williams and Tank Dell.
I get her real quick.
Yeah, I'm Jeudy and Dell on this one. I just like I brought up earlier about Jeudy, and then of course with the Tank Dell situation, like Jorge brought up, Ryan Weiss's comment yesterday morning. I think Tank Dell gets peppered there in Houston this week. Standard League need a flex: Kamara, Mostert, Jerome Ford. Also, quarterback options are Tua and Burrow.
All Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Yep, I think it is Mostert and Tua as well. That's going to be a high-scoring game, so give me all the scoring there. Anything else you want to add to the Tennessee Cincinnati game, Jorge?
Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard are defensive linemen, although Hendrickson, I don't know. I keep saying these names, and I go back and I keep looking through my rankings, and like he's just further down. Sam Hubbard I have as my 23. Hendrickson, he's far. He's real far. But Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson, Dax Hill at defensive back, probably those two linebackers, Pratt, Logan, and then Hill at defensive back would be my immediate must starts from the Bengals.
Yeah. Trey's tricky because last week, he had 10 pressures. He's never done that in his career. It was against Zavala, a backup guard he's not really a backup. He should be a backup guard for the Panthers. And Tennessee's offensive line is garbage. And so it makes me hesitant to move Trey up because we've been burned so many times over the past year and a half now with him. But I think the sack upside is with Trey. So if you're in a sack heavy league, that could make sense. I just don't love it.
Yeah, real quick update on the Jags game. Desmond Ridder threw a pick 6, immediately comes back on the field and throws another pick. The Jags are in the red zone. They are up 17-0 as we are going now.
I want to say in half PPR scoring, Calvin Ridley has 9.5 points, PPR 10 points. He only has one target and one reception, that being that wide open 30-yard touchdown for the game so far. So I'm really curious to see whether this is indicative of a corner shadow or something else going on. But interesting, this revenge game so far.
Yeah, he just hasn't been needed. The Jags defense is just that damn good, right, Nate?
Yeah, that's what it is. They maybe this will teach Desmond Ridder to throw the ball so damn much.
Well, I mean, Preston was asking for him to throw the ball. When he throws the ball, then he throws 2 picks. So stop asking for him to throw the ball. And if he's not going to throw the ball to Kyle Pitts, then there's no need. Welcome to the show, Dave. How are we doing this morning?
Not too bad, fellas. I just saw a bobblehead go for a pick 6 in a kid's room, so that was interesting. Interesting world we're living in.
Yeah.
Oh,
you must be watching on the Disney Plus side of things.
It's a little bit delayed. It's about 2 or 3 downs behind, but it's kind of cool. Kind of cool concept, though.
Yeah, I haven't watched any of it. I know Jorge's waiting to watch the replay on Disney Plus as well with the Toy Story theme to it. So let's move on to the LA Chargers, Indianapolis Colts. Indy is favored by 1, over under 45.
Rams. It's the Rams that are.
The Rams are favored by 1?
No,
I'm sorry. Did I say the Chargers? Okay. Yeah. My bad. Well, the LA stuff is all confusing. They're almost like the New York teams. But anyway, I digress. The Indy is favored by 1, over under of 45. Who's out in this game? Nate.
So the left tackle for the Rams, Alert Johnson, is out for the Colts. Another offensive lineman and Ryan Kelly is out with Bernard Raymond, tackle for Indianapolis. And then questionable is DeForest Buckner. I think he's going to play, but he did have a questionable tag on the week. Something to pay attention to. Him and Grover Stewart both did up the middle, but I think both will play from what I've seen.
Well, the one name you did not mention on there was Anthony Richardson. So he's playing. Fire him up. Fire him up.
He's QB1 for me this week.
I was just fixing to ask you, is he back in that QB1 area?
Yeah, for me, he is. Yeah, Shane Steichen has brought this offense to a pace as well as a passing upside that I didn't expect to see this early on, and that just even elevates Anthony Richardson even higher in my book.
Welcome to the show there, Mr. Chris Battistow.
Thanks for having me.
Host of Fourth and Frames on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. We had Rhett on earlier, so we're getting to 2 of the 3 of you so far. Welcome to the show. Colts have allowed the 4th most points to quarterbacks. Is Stafford a potential QB1 this week, Jorge?
I have him at my 12, so he's right there in the cusp there. as a QB1, low end QB1, just ahead of Justin Fields. Yeah, I like Stafford. I like what's missing from Stafford is 1 or 2 touchdowns, and we're talking about him being a QB1 on the season. So I think this is a good opportunity for them to get into the end zone. The issue here is Nate, you brought it up, the offensive line woes. Will he have time to develop? That depends on whether or not they bring in these tight ends to block more. I think they will. I think Stafford has a pretty damn good performance this week against Indy, despite the pass rushing prowess of the Colts, as well as the deficiencies on the offensive line for the Rams.
With those deficiencies on the offensive line, is Kyron Williams a play this week, Dave?
He's a play, but I think we're tempering our expectations. I think he's very game script driven. I think he does well when the Rams are either in a close game or they're leading. So I don't know. I mean, I think PPR wise, he's good for a few catches, but I'm not expecting a ton out of Kyron this week.
Chris, with the fact that Anthony Richardson is back this week, we know the rushing upside that he presents. Zach Moss, are we automatically plugging him into your lineup?
Yeah, I don't mind automatically plugging them in. Anthony Richardson is going to snake some of those end zone, red zone touchdowns from him, so there is the probability of that. But with the usage that he's getting, they released Deion Jackson. He is the guy there until the very least Jonathan Taylor comes back. So you want to plug him in as your RB2, you want to plug him in as a flex. I got no issue with Zach Moss this week.
Speaking of Jonathan Taylor, they did open up his 21-day window to return. I guess the trade talks have simmered a little bit. They're asking, from what I heard, was at least an early second, which seems kind of crazy that they can get him for that. Nate, just updating us that Deshaun Watson has been ruled out. So it will be DTR there in Cleveland. Colts have allowed the 7th most points to wide receivers. Tutu and Puka, plug in and play. Jorge?
Yes, absolutely.
Nate, you're on board with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I worry about Tyler Higbee's Achilles being, not that he's been heavily involved in this offense anyway, but one less mouth to feed does open up Tutu and Puka for being maybe a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2/3.
Dave, how about Michael Pittman on the other side of the ball with as good of a game as he's had last week with Gardner Minshew? What do you expect from him this week with Anthony Richardson back in the fold?
Well, he was balling. I mean, the one thing I liked with Gardner Minshew is that he's one of the handful of pocket QBs, if you want to call him that, I guess. So he does like to air it out. I think Anthony Richardson's going to look to run a lot more. So I don't see him getting as many targets. But that being said, he's been doing a pretty good job with the targets he's been getting. So look, I think he's a serviceable wide receiver 2. I'm not expecting wide receiver 1 upside.
All right, Jorge, let's talk about these IDPs guys on the Rams side. What are we looking at?
Well, we mentioned like the ballsy upset of Byron Young earlier. Aaron Donald, which, by the way, I'm actually pro Byron Young this week. I think this is an excellent matchup here. Aaron Donald, Ernest Jones. Yeah, that's probably who I'm thinking about for the Rams. I think let's see here. Jordan Fuller I have as my defensive back 29. So whatever. He's a DB3, so I'm not like jumping up for joy, but I think those 3 recommendations for the Rams are who I'm rolling with this week.
Nate, how about the Colts side of the ball?
Yeah, Kwity Paye looks like if I would like to see him get 4 sacks in 4 games. That's something optimistic that I've been a fan of Kwity Paye, and then obviously with some of the injuries across the Rams offensive line that helps out. Zaire Franklin's been just a beast, tackle monster, and with the Rams, with Kyron Williams, if you expect him to do what we've seen, which is just completely take over everything in the rushing game, I think that's I don't want to say easy tackles for Zaire, but I think he should be in line. And then Julian Blackmon is the only other person really on that team that Jorge touched on a couple weeks back and really brought his name to the forefront. And he's done exactly what he said, which is play in the box plenty of times. And as a result has just, eaten week in and week out and still underrated. So Julian Blackmon should be firmly in your must-start defensive back conversations.
We're ready to move on to Tampa, New Orleans, unless any of y'all have anything to add with the Rams Indy.
Nope, we're good.
We are moving on.
Speaking of moving on, I mean, at what point do the Falcons move on from Desmond Ridder or Ryder, whatever his name is?
Yesterday.
I mean, this experiment is terrible, right? I mean, I think he's gotten lucky with it, with his week 1 win, but he's not good. Can we accept that or what? I mean,
it's been accepted.
It's accepted. It's been accepted, and no return to sender, and it's opened and on the mantle. The question
do we see Taylor Heineke?
Well,
sorry, go.
I do want to see.
I know you do. No, I don't disagree with that. I just thought this past week, which was interesting, you guys might have seen this on Twitter and everywhere else, is the hype, the talk of, hey, can we get Justin Fields to the Falcons trade talk, which will not be an improvement to any of the pass catchers in Atlanta. But from an excitement level for Falcons fans, it would be, I think, interesting to have his talents with his legs on display. I know, gross, isn't it?
It still does nothing for Kyle Pitts. It still does nothing for Drake London. It just does nothing for nobody on the offense that they already have, and that's the problem. If you go back, even in the draft, whenever we had Keith Fleming talking about his Falcons, they do not support the players that they've already drafted with the players that they're currently drafting. It's absolutely asinine and ridiculous there in Atlanta. And I'm for one am happy that Atlanta is in the NFC South along with my Bucks that we're going to talk about now. It is not going to be a Jameis Winston revenge game, as Ian Rappaport reported just a few minutes ago. Derek Carr is going to start this game. How long he plays, I guess, ultimately is the question. And does he have 3 mattresses on each side of him like Jorge thinks it's going to be like the little Giants? What are you expecting, Chris, from Derek Carr in this game against the Bucks?
A very low ADOT is what I'm expecting from Derek Carr against the Bucks this week. Not expecting him to push the ball downfield all that much. I'll be surprised if he attempts any more than 5 throws past maybe 25 to 30 yards. So what that means for Olave is up in the air for me. I'm going to try to attack the tight ends and the slot wide receivers, maybe Michael Thomas in this matchup for the Saints. I'm still going to start Olave just because of the player that he is, but staying away from everybody else. And we get the emergence of Alvin Kamara. So the fact that he has a bad shoulder might mean good things for AK.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Dave, is it workload? What's the workload expectation for Kamara in this game now, knowing that Derek Carr is going to start, and it's probably like Chris just said, it's probably going to be a low ADOT game for him. Do you expect Kamara to first game back to just break the RB numbers?
He's riding pine on my bench in a bunch of leagues. I actually have Zeke Elliott playing over him in a couple of leagues. I want to see what he can do first, especially with his first game back, a banged up Carr. And we don't know what that game script is going to look like. I'm expecting the Bucks to be winning by a lot. I don't know if they just work him in, as a workhorse running back. So I really want to wait and see. If you have the option to have better players, I would go with it. I think it's just a little bit too high risk. I'm not expecting an RB1 this week. That's for sure.
Okay, I guess that's fair. You brought up the fact that you think Tampa is going to be winning by a lot. I neglected to mention this is a 3.5 point spread. New Orleans is favored, and the over under is 40 in this game. So Vegas is not expecting a very high points scored here. The Saints have given up 0 TDs to opposing running backs this year. Is Rachaad White still RB2 worthy, Nate?
Usage wise, yes. It's production might not have followed suit. But I mean, it's really hard to overlook just so much usage out of a running back in today's NFL that, and I'm opposite of the Sean Tucker hype train necessarily. And maybe that's a lack of my research on him from college. I haven't seen much in the way of his usage eating into Rachaad White. I mean, Rachaad White just last week still had 88% of the rushing attempts. He had 89% route participation. I'm gonna get that eventually one of these years. And then like 100% of every other major metric, 2-minute drill, long distance to go, inside the 5. Everything was leaning towards Rachaad White. I don't love the matchup against the Saints as a whole, but I think that if you're looking in this bleak running back outlook that we have, that I'm going to take usage every day.
Yeah, but I mean, usage-wise, I get what you're saying. He's getting the attempts, but what's he doing with? I mean, yeah, usage-wise, you can technically use the same pair of underpants 4 times, back to front and inside out, right? Doesn't mean
Correct.
you should. I just can't see much efficiency out of him. He's just not. He's not doing a good job as a pass catcher, as a north-south runner. I wouldn't be surprised if they start to see what else is out there in the open market. You know, because they need that running game. They rely on the north-south runner. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really impressed with what he's done, and I can't see him being that efficient.
Chris, who's your boy Drew recommending in lieu of Rachaad White? Who's the guy on 4th and frames? He has been.
Just a little unknown guy by the name of Sean Tucker.
Well, you know, Nate brought up Sean Tucker there, and I went back and looked at it because I have watched most, if not all, of the Bucs games this year. And Sean Tucker is usually coming in just for basically 1 or 2 series a game. He's not in there a ton. It is really Rachaad White's backfield, at least to this point. And, you know, I think it is just strictly a volume play if you're playing Rachaad White. We talked about Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore earlier. Who prevails in that matchup, Jorge?
Evans. Hands down.
Evans. Hands down. Nate, you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. It's scary, but I do.
The fact that Tampa allows the 9th most points to running backs, and now it's not going to, to wide receivers, and it's not going to be Winston this week. It is going to be Carr. Chris, you touched on Olave and Thomas. Is Shaheed even going to be a factor this week?
The fact that most of his production comes from those big stretch plays, and Derek Carr does have that bum shoulder, I'm not going to be comfortable plugging him in. If I have to, I'll put him in there just because he does have the ability to stretch the field. But with the stuff that's going on with Derek Carr, I'm not the most comfortable guy plugging him in this week.
Let's talk IDP, Jorge.
Yeah, so for Tampa Bay, Devin White, let's see where I have him. I have him as my linebacker 8, the Levante David 16, Ryan Neal at safety. On the flip side, Nate, I know you're not high on Carl Granderson heading into this week, but damn it, he's been just so damn good, right? Mm-hmm. But you mentioned in your start and sit article for IDP, which, folks, there's plenty of time. Head over to fantasyandframes.com and give that a read. Tristan Wirfs should be who he's lining up against, which is not an ideal defensive lineman, offensive lineman matchup there. Pete Werner, Davario Davis. Why don't you speak to Alante there? Because he came out and he balled out last week for the Saints at corner.
Yeah, Alante Taylor's a really good slot corner. And that was matchup based, though. That was Green Bay. That was Jordan Love's inefficiency and potential to elevate Alante Taylor. This week, I don't know if I'm as high. It'd be interesting to see Tampa's usage to a slot receiver is still, upper percentile. I just don't know if I like him as much as I did last week. But from a quarterback only league, if you have to start a corner, he's been as good as anybody, especially when you see players like Nate Hobbs out this week, amongst others.
Welcome Kyle to the show. Kyle, what's going on, Kyle?
Hey, good morning, guys. Glad to be here.
But you coming in all perky and piped up. Did you just get your last cup of coffee in, or did you already drink beer?
No.
We're
No.
sit
I
one
came on-
PPR.
I
Sit
came
one
on-
PPR.
Oh, go
Swift,
ahead.
come on, or
Mhm.
Kyron Williams. Go ahead, Kyle.
Sit
First
one.
of all, this is Alex Smith. The Alex Smith.
This is
Thank
the
you.
Alex Smith, yes, from the Kansas City Chiefs, though. Alex Smith, right?
That's who I'm referring to. Yes. If not, it's still okay. We still like you, Alex.
This is a nice problem to have, Alex. I'm gonna go with Kamara just because we don't know what he's gonna look like yet. Because I remember I had Kamara last year, and oh man, I had some games that I would wish I did not have him. So I avoided him this year. But yeah, I would sit Kamara just because I want to see what we got out of him first.
Yeah, I'm right there in agreement with you. I do like Kamara as a whole for I think going forward, I think the volume could be there, but kind of like Dave was talking about with Rashad White, that's what Alvin Kamara was last year. Inefficient with the ball when he had it. He averaged I would say a shy less than what Rashad White has done so far on this season. And I think when asked that question, would you rather have Alvin Kamara from last year or Rashad White from this year? I think we would be mistaken in how we would interpret their production overall.
Yeah, this leads me right into our next game right here with Washington at Philly. 9.5. Philly is favored by 9.5. 43 over under. The Swift question of this is Swift. You cannot sit at all going forward until he gives you a reason to sit him, right? With the way that he's done, with what he's done over the last 2 weeks, over 300 yards combined in the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks for him. Dave, do you believe that, or is it Swift? You can find a way to sit him.
Roll with a hot hand, and I guess the formula works. Swift is on fire, exactly as you said. Until we see otherwise, I mean, I think he's the lead back there. So I'm absolutely going with Swift. I think he's I guess a consistent RB1 going forward until further notice.
Right on. Johnny D stuck between Myers, Mostert, Jacobs as his flex in a PPR. His current wide receivers are Adams and Lamb. Running backs are ETN and Swift. Chris, he's stuck between Myers, Mostert, and Jacobs. I'm assuming he's got to pick one of these guys.
Yeah, I'm probably fading Myers with Jimmy G out, Aiden O'Connell getting the start there, and then so it's between Jacobs and Mostert for me. As much as we like the output of what Mostert gave us last week, there has been reports that Devin Achane is going to be getting more usage in that running game. So I'm going to lean on Josh Jacobs and hope that the Raiders do too with Jimmy G out, and he can get back to his RB1 status that he was for us last year.
Nate, you agree?
Go ahead.
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
Everyone needs to come back down to earth with this. The Dolphins are not scoring 70 points every week.
Exactly.
So all these people using last week as this many yards per carry and all that, I get it, but we need to just put that game as a 1 in a million thing and look at other usage. But yeah, Mostert I think is going to very much come back down to earth.
Listen, I don't know why you got to come on here this early in the morning and be a damn party pooper about the Dolphins offense. That's ridiculous.
I'm a Pats fan, so I don't want to see him do good. I want to see him score negative 70 points.
It's like Nate has a way to do this negative scoring thing in the NFL. I don't know how he's doing it, but he brought it up earlier this morning. So let's get over to Washington, Philly. Like I said, it's a 9.5 point favorite or 9.5 point spread for Philly, 43 over and under. Nate, who is out this week?
On the Philly side, safety Sidney Brown, who hasn't had much play, is out. Devontae Smith has been limited to practice with an illness, but he returned and should be good to go. And that's about it. It's a otherwise pretty healthy game.
You have on here that Hurts has scored more rushing TDs except for other than 4 people.
True.
Holy smokes. That's crazy. That's a crazy number. Is he a sale candidate for you?
I say yes. I haven't been impressed with what the Eagles have looked like. short of those rushing touchdowns from the old tush push, I think that there is a very good opportunity. I think you could sell Hurts and get someone like Trevor Lawrence and a mega bonus plus at another position. And I think that would serve really, really well going forward. I might be on an island with that, but I don't have much Hurts out there, so I don't have that opportunity, but I wish I did.
I don't think you're on an island. What would you want for Hurts? Let's put it like that.
Well, something like that. Somebody that's, I think, a little more of an underperforming. I don't think Trevor Lawrence has lived up to what his upside can be. And the problem is those 2-for-1s suck. No one wants to do those 2-for-1s. No one wants to get rid of. But I would have, personally, I would love to try to be able to upgrade and get someone like Ramondre and Trevor Lawrence for my Hurts and whatever piece that may be. It's hard to speculate on pieces I don't actually physically roster, but I would much rather take advantage of that myself.
Does anybody disagree with selling Hurts at this point? Sounds like no. Everybody agrees to sell Hurts.
Yeah, Hurts sucks.
Dave and I just talked about that Swift is pretty much a must start until proven otherwise. Is Kenneth Gainwell a flex play? Kyle.
Man, I knew you were going to come to me on that one. I would say no, but he's a hold, but I wouldn't flex him yet. I know he looked good without Swift, but now Swift's back. It just looks to me that DeAndre Swift stole this backfield. It's all Swift now. I would still hold Gainwell. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting him in a flex spot.
Dave, you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm probably not playing Gainwell. I think we're seeing the number one run back there just, being Swift. And I'm glad no one brought up Taylor Swift when that name came up. So
you just did it.
So sick of hearing that story. So sick of hearing that story, man. Anyway, that's conversation for another day.
Let time out. Okay. If you are not having fun with this and it's only been a week, you're no fun. Talk to me week 13 when this is still dragging on. Then we'll talk. By the way, Nate, your Patrick Mahomes' wife hung out with Taylor Swift last night. Little TMZ media drop there for those who are interested.
They were not just hanging out. They were doing shots
together. Ooh, yeah. Fucking shocker. Two women at a bar have shots. Fucking news at 11. Watch out.
breaking news.
Yeah.
Schefter and Rappaport have been on it all week. I'm like, guys, this is getting out of hand as well. But
yeah, Jordan Schultz has been right there, right on the coattails as well, just following them around. They found out that they closed down a restaurant, and Taylor Swift it cost her 2 seats at her next concert to shut down a restaurant. It's insane what's going on in Kansas City right now. As good as the Philly D is with both front seven and secondary, Jorge, is there any of your commanders that you can say that, yes, you are starting against this defense?
Terry McLaurin, James Bradbury, Darius Slay have had plenty of opportunities to try and shut down Terry McLaurin. Not the case. I think the additions of Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis taking steps forward in his second year, even Fletcher Cox has played well. They have had, in terms of average depth of tackle, sub 5-yard allowance to running backs. So Sam Howell's going to have to air this thing out, and I think he's going to go to his number one target, Terry McLaurin. I know a lot of people want to hope that Jahan Dotson finally breaks through that ceiling. He is right behind McLaurin in targets, but I think at the end of the day, McLaurin is just such a great route runner and can just beat anybody in coverage. I think you're going to find Terry McLaurin be the beneficiary of that for Washington's offense.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, but is this the game, Nate, that Hassan Reddick shows up?
If there's one to happen, it is this one, because the old Commanders have shown that Sam Howell likes to take a sack every now and then.
Yeah, real quick before we bring Stacy in, anybody else on the IDP side that you are looking at, outside of for the Commanders, I guess, not not necessarily for Philly.
I will finish strong before I step out, and finally, you guys get a proper replacement in Stacy.
Yes.
Much, much bigger upgrade for sure, and that's going to be Josh Sweat. I have Josh Sweat. If there's going to be a big game, I think it's Sweat more than Reddick. I don't think it's going to be Montez Sweat. We talked about that earlier. Montez Sweat against this Philly offensive line. I think it's grounds for a sit. I mean, if you don't have better options, I get it, but I worry a little bit. Zach Gunningham's been the linebacker to roster in Philly. Reed Blankenship returns and is a big play waiting to happen. He did something that no other undrafted Eagles player has done, is have 2 interceptions like in their first 12 games. And so really like that. And then on Jorge's side, Cameron Curl's been a stud. Cody Barton's been a player on the field picking up tackles, and he likes Jamin Davis. Jorge, how high do you have Jamin Davis this week?
Oh man, I definitely have. I just have my rankings up right now. Hold on.
Well, while you're looking at that, I want to.
Jamin Davis. Sorry, I have Jamin Davis at 32. Cody Barton at 23. So Barton with a little bit of an upside, but I definitely like Jamin Davis. And I like both of them for IDP.
Perfect.
Nate, I'm going to send you out on a high note right here, because we talked about this at the very, very beginning of the show, but it just happened. 40 yards to Bijan, to infinity and Bijan.
Yeah. There we go. Much needed. Much needed. All right,
y'all. Nate. Have a great day.
Will do.
He'll be back. He'll be back. We're just rotating in and out.
I'm back in a little bit. I'm going to take a break.
All right,
y'all. Welcome in Stacy Perez.
What an intro.
I know.
How are you doing this morning, Miss Perez, after a great hockey game last night?
Oh, it was an excellent hockey game last night. Go Bolts. Chris, hockey's back. Are you excited?
Yeah, somewhat excited. I mean, I'm ready to be heard again as a Leafs fan.
Jorge, real quickly, finish us out on the Washington Philly game. If there is anything else that needs to be said about this defensive side of the ball on either one of these teams.
For those who play in IDP leagues, defensive tackle specific, I know we want to get on Jalen Carter and have him be the starter. Not yet. Snaps haven't been there. Believe it or not, Fletcher Cox has had more snaps, especially playing against the run. So this could be a sneaky Fletcher Cox game. But aside from that, no, I think we've covered everything for Philly and Washington.
Then we will and shall move right along to Minnesota at Carolina. Minnesota favored by 4.5, over under of 46. Miles Sanders looks like he's going to play, if I'm not mistaken, with a groin. And then Xavier Woods is the only two that I'm seeing on this list right now. Jorge, is Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson just going to demolish this back end of this Carolina defense?
I would demolish. No, I actually do like the defense for Carolina a little bit. They have been pretty stingy against quarterbacks and fantasy production. That being the case, I think Justin Jefferson will get his. I think the real question is it going to be the KJ Osborne show or the Jordan Addison show? We saw, I talked about it and Stacey's talked about it this past week. Jordan Addison has been kind of touchdown or bust. Yardage has been there. Targets have, receptions have not. KJ Osborne just sneaks in there when you don't want him to. It's going to be an interesting situation there. But if I have Kirk Cousins, I'm starting Kirk Cousins. He's a must start for me in fantasy week in and week out.
Yeah, and we mentioned that I believe Bryce Young is going to play this week. Not sure if Mingo is or not. And I know Stacy is pretty high on Jonathan Mingo. Jorge and I were talking about this earlier with Nate. The fact that Adam Thielen is still there, still being relevant. If Mingo plays, is he a player for you? Oh my goodness. Wait. Sorry. Breaking news. Desmond Ridder, touchdown to Drake London.
Wow. London gets one in London.
Dave, I knew as soon as I said Desmond Ritter's name, Dave's reaching for the mic. Oh, I gotta talk.
No, this is bad. Feeling good.
I turned that off. Oh my Lord.
Screw YouTube censorship for now. We're playing.
We're gonna get another letter.
Yes, we're gonna get another letter. That's okay. That's okay. They're gonna be on automatic email weekly for Jorge on that one.
Pretty much.
What are we looking at there, Stacy, with the Bryce Young return? What's your feelings?
Yeah, so with the Bryce Young return, I mean, I don't know that I'm starting Mingo anywhere. I don't know that I'm quite that desperate, although I like him season long, just not probably right now. Yeah, I mean, if Thielen starts, I think you got to go Thielen. That's kind of the thing, right? I mean, he's kind of been the guy there. One question for me though, what do you guys think about Hayden Hurst? Like, is he kind of had that really big week one? You know, the rest of the game's not so great. You know, a little bit of a disappointment from that. Do you think that he comes back with with Bryce Young back under center now? Do you think that he's going to be his safety blanket again? Do we see a resurgence in the tight end wasteland?
Well,
he's one of my starts this week at tight end.
Okay.
The Vikings are allowing 9.2 points per game to the position, which if you're not on tight end premium, that's kind of like really good for the wasteland that is tight ends. In terms of tying that into defense a little bit, Jordan Hicks last week, the linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, was played more in coverage than Ivan Pace was, who's their middle linebacker. And he Jordan Hicks allowed, I believe it was 6 receptions, an NFL passer rating when targeted of 158.3. I believe that's a perfect passer rating. It is with 100, with all the targets that he was targeted for when guarding the receiver allowed to that receiver. So I think Hayden Hurst has a plus matchup this week against Minnesota.
My thing with Hayden Hurst is his snap share is doing this, and his points are doing this. It should be they should be going together and not against each other, in my opinion. And they are doing the complete opposite. Hayden Hurst for me is just somebody you can't trust, but it's Carolina as well, so it's hard to trust anybody in that offense for me. What are we looking at with the Vikings running back room? I know how much Dave loves Madison. Akers is now there. Are we just going to jump right into all Akers? Is it going to be a 50-50 split? What do you expect from the running back room there in Minnesota there, Dave?
This is a big guessing game. Now we've got Akers with a full week. I just don't know what we see. I think Madison tried to play his heart out last week to secure his number one job, but I think this is going to be the week we find out who is the lead dog there. So honestly, I don't know, and I'm trusting none of them. If you can, anyway.
Can you trust Chuba Hubbard to do anything with the possibility of Miles Sanders there, Kyle?
No.
Are you starting either one of them? Sanders or
like,
Hubbard?
Sanders, yes. Hubbard, no. You can't start Hubbard. He doesn't get enough volume for me to start Hubbard. And I don't even really like starting Miles Sanders, but sometimes you're in a pinch and you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Minnesota allowed Swift in week 2 to just absolutely break fantasy football, but they didn't allow anything major against Tampa or the Chargers. You're not even willing to flex Chuba Hubbard?
Me?
Yeah.
No, not at all. No, there's got to be better options than Chuba Hubbard, right?
I'm just trying to make the argument that there's a place for him.
I don't see
Dynasty.
it. Does anybody else see it? Am I missing something?
No.
If I am, let me know.
No. I just giving you hell. I just giving you hell.
Okay. I was like,
Dynasty question.
Is Miles Sanders out or something?
Dynasty question from Preston here. He offered Addison and a 24-second. Someone offered Addison and a 24-second for Brees. How crazy is that, Jorge?
I'm not touching bad offenses right now. So I would make that trade. I would take Addison in a second for Brees Hall.
Yep.
You don't know what this quarterback situation is going to be next year. I know last year he showed people, hey, even with Zach Wilson, I was still relevant. I don't know. The offensive line is crap. You have no certainty. Give me Addison in the pick.
Yep, I agree with that. Dave, you good with that?
I mean, do we think that Justin Jefferson stays in Minnesota? Because he's obviously going to be demanding, top dollar contract. Are they really going to pay him? I mean, what did Tyreek get? Like 140, 150 mil? And then Adams was a little bit more. So, I mean, you would safely assume he's going to be warranting like 160, 170. Do the Vikings pay that? So if that's the case, and Addison can show flashes, I mean, maybe Addison's the guy next year. I know I'm reaching here, but that might be the case. I mean, that might be a major steal.
Now, if you're Minnesota, you're going to build that offense around Justin Jefferson. You're not going to let him walk. You'll give him whatever he wants. Kirk Cousins at the end of his lifespan there in the NFL. You're not building around him. You got a young quarterback you drafted. Maybe you see what you got out of him, but you definitely build with Justin Jefferson, in my opinion.
All right.
You think Kirk stays there next year?
He could, maybe like on a top tier 1 year deal type thing. That's what Kirk Cousins has always done. He is like the GOAT with contracts.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's get through this game right here, Minnesota, Carolina. Jorge, IDP side of the ball. What do you got for this game?
So Harrison Phillips in defensive tackle specific leagues leads all defensive tackles and tackles, coincidentally. So that obviously gives you a fantasy point floor. Daniil Hunter, elite. Ivan Pace Jr., great LB3. Jordan Hicks, LB3. Brian Burns, top 12 defensive lineman. Kamir Grugier-Hill coming in replacement of Shaq Thompson, who is out with an ankle injury. Fantastic. Frankie Louvu, he's good to go. He was questionable heading into this week. He's definitely a must start as he's just flanking plays from either rushing the passer or just being a good run stopper. Those are my confident picks right there.
All right, so we are getting down to it. We got about 45 minutes or so left. If you have questions, please drop those in the chat. We will get to those as we get through these last few games. Moving on to Pittsburgh at Houston. Pittsburgh is favored by 3, over under of 42. Looks like guard Josh Jones, Laramie Tunsil, Denzel Perryman, and who is that? Trevarian Thomas? Is that correct? Did I say that right, Jorge? Trevarian Thomas. Those guys are out. Let's start with Stacy's.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jorge.
Yeah. So with Perryman out, Christian Harris, we thought the second-year player would be somebody you'd want to start. He's been playing poorly. Out of Alabama, I believe, Henry Tuatuo has been seeing an uptick in snaps. So if you're really desperate, for a linebacker, and if you have 3 linebacker spots, he could be somebody to pay attention to, especially against this predicted run-heavy script for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, Stacey. Houston has allowed the most rushing TDs.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh's allowed the 3rd most rushing yards. Najee Harris or Pierce to finish higher.
Can I go with option C and take Jalen Warren?
You can. He is at least in this game on one of these teams.
Well,
So
he's
yes.
in this game. He's absolutely crushing in the, receiving game too. I mean, right now he's got 101 receiving yards, 12 receptions in this offense. Honestly, Dameon Pierce has not looked great at all, especially considering where you drafted him. So not a fan of that. If he has a get right game, it probably should be against, Pittsburgh with their defensive situation here. But, and Najee just, I don't know if it's me, but he just looks slow every time that he gets the ball. It looks like he's got, I don't know, like secret weights in his shoes or something that are keeping him from running. So I don't really love that. I mean, if I'm taking anybody out of this game, out of those guys, honestly, I'm going to take option C and take Jalen Warren, I think.
Najee Harris is the Judas of your team. It's just betraying you every single week. If you have him, you have to play him, unfortunately, but man, is he a dead weight on your team. Because you're sitting there looking at him going, all right, he's my RB1 technically, but he's producing like a RB5.
Yeah, and Jorge said this earlier. Jorge's going to give him one more week. I think I'm on giving him one more week as well. It's going to hurt my feelings, though, if I have to cut him or just straight out bench him for somebody else.
Well, maybe what you can do is if he has a good game, then maybe you can sell him. Yeah.
But you got to have the good game first. So it hasn't been close here lately.
Everyone knows that strategy, though. I mean, that's
right.
tough. That's
but you'll take anything for him.
You'll
literally take anything.
Mm-hmm.
Find the Steelers fan in your league and try to offload him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That's exactly right. Despite being solid versus the quarterback, the Steelers do allow a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. Is it Tank Dell? Is it Nico? Or is it both, Kyle?
I think you could start both. Safely start both. Tank Dell has proven that he can handle the load. I would start both. Yeah,
Stacy wanted me to send that question to her so bad. She was already speaking.
Go ahead, Stacy.
No, I agree with you. I'd start both of them. I'd fire both those guys up. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Houston allows most of the points that they allow to slot receivers. Can you trust Allen Robinson in this game there, Dave?
Oh, gross. Hopefully you got better options than Allen Robinson. I mean, it's a shame because he once was an absolute stud, but I'm not doing it. And it's a little bit more so who's throwing him the ball. I mean, I'm just not a fan of Kenny Pickett. I think he's just not an accurate QB, and there's not enough room there for him to spread the ball out. So no, right. I'm not.
Jorge, I'm going to throw this question at you, and as soon as you get done answering, go right into the IDP for me so we can get through these last few games. Pat Freiermuth, tight end 6 last week, most targets all season. Is he finally trustworthy?
Yes, he's my tight end 7. Fire him up.
Fire him up. All right, IDP for me.
TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, outside linebackers classified as defensive linemen. Quan Alexander is kind of taking snaps away from Cole Holcomb, so fire him up. On the flip side, Jalen Petrie returning at defensive back for the Houston Texans. Will Anderson has been really good. Jonathan Grenard should get more one-on-one matchups. Both of these defensive ends should do really well against this horrible pass blocking unit of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I talked about Henry To'oTo'o. Yeah, that's all we got there.
Moving over to Vegas at the Chargers. Chargers favored by 6. Second highest over-under on the slate at 48. Jimmy G is out. Aiden O'Connell will start. Nate Hobbs, Max Crosby, both limited. Bosa, Eckler, Derwin, and Gilman did not practice or limited in practice. Doesn't look like those guys are going to play. Who does it affect the most with Aiden O'Connell starting in Vegas or for Vegas, Dave?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is Devontae Adams. I just don't know what we're going to see out of him. They're going to be trailing. I can see the Chargers winning this thing by a landslide, like a 41-10 or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's really tough when you get an unknown quarterback because you just don't know what kind of plays that the coaches adapt for him. So, yeah, Adams, you're obviously playing Devontae Adams, but that scares me.
Yeah, I was just fixing to jump in there, and you can't sit him, though. No,
you're definitely not sitting Devontae Adams. And if you are, I mean, you must have some amazing options or be in a 4-man league or something. But, yeah.
Let me ask you, are you starting Jacoby Myers? Him and Adams have been dominating target share for the Vegas Raiders. Yeah, unknown here is the quarterback, right? So do you trust O'Connell enough to get him the ball?
Probably not. I mean, maybe as a flex, I would entertain it, but that's your best case scenario. Definitely not as a wide receiver too.
Well, there's a great article out there on fantasyandframes.com where Preston wrote that you could flex out Jacoby Myers. He explains why. Go check it out, fantasyandframes.com.
All right.
Nicely done, Kyle, and great work, Preston.
Free plug, right?
Yeah, it was
pro.
And that article was really a really good article. There was some really thought out processes as he's writing that article. So very nice job there, Preston.
But if I could just ask one more thing about Devontae Adams, don't you know how we always say like some guys are matchup proof? Don't you think that Devontae Adams is somewhat quarterback proof?
Yes.
Yeah, but he's proven that multiple times. It didn't matter if it was Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, and it didn't matter that it was Derek Carr or Jimmy G.
are all their other backups in Green Bay?
And Huntley, remember that one year when
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers separated his show with Huntley?
Yeah.
Still averaged 10.8. Yeah.
I couldn't think of Huntley, but that's exactly. I mean, as long as O'Connell can get in the air, Devontae's coming down with it. So
right.
I fully, completely trust Devontae Adams.
He's a target monster. No
Yeah,
matter
he is.
Dave, answer this question real quick from Hunter. Amari Cooper, Brandon Ayuk.
Cooper, it's Cooper. I mean, Ayuk is still slowly coming back from from his injury. I just think this the safer option. I'm not saying Ayuk's a bad option, but out of those two, I'm taking Cooper. I think we saw a little bit of a flash in the pan week 1 with Ayuk, so a little bit of a come down to earth moment. I still think he probably sees 5 or 6 targets. Maybe he gets you 60, 70 yards, possibly a touchdown, but Cooper is just a beast over there.
Kyle.
I would actually go Ayuk. If he's on the field, you play Ayuk. I think he's doing better than Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper has had those up and down type games. Ayuk for me is a little bit more steady in that offense. So I would go with Brandon Ayuk and a good matchup with Budda Baker out.
Stacy, break the tie.
Yeah, I'm going Ayuk. He's leading the team in touchdowns. He's got 2. He's got 172 yards, which is still second most on the team, even after missing that time. I'm a little hesitant on Cooper just with DTR back there, even though I'm really high on DTR. Just want to see what he's got. So Ayuk for me.
And I know, Jorge, you're on the Ayuk side here as well, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
That's right. All right, Stacy, is this the get right game going back to the Vegas Chargers game? Is this the get right game for Josh Jacobs, being that they have Aiden O'Connell at quarterback?
Yeah, this is the question mark for me. I mean, but he's a rookie quarterback coming in. I mean, I think if he's ever going to be able to rely on Josh Jacobs, I mean, this is going to be it, right? His first game out there. So, on the flip side, it could be they're down so much at the, after a few minutes and, maybe they just start throwing it. So I think this is kind of a hard question for me, honestly. I mean, I'm kind of really like struggling here. What do I do with Josh Jacobs? But I mean, I think he's kind of in that same spot as Devontae Adams. You're probably not sitting him if you have him. So, I mean, I think you definitely have to start him. I think maybe just temper expectations a little bit.
I don't know. I actually like Josh Jacobs in this one. I mean, last week he had 17 carries. He's getting the volume, 62 yards, no touchdowns. He's got one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. I understand there may be frustration growing with Jacobs, but because he hasn't found the end zone, but he's still getting the volume. I even looked on PFF last night, and inside the 5 carries, he's like running back 4 in that category. So he's getting the volume. So this is the game for Josh Jacobs. I think he'll have a nice bounce back game.
Dave, is this the game we all want to see out of Josh Kelly? Is this what are we going to finally see Josh Kelly?
Has Eckler been ruled out officially?
Nate,
I think he has.
At 11:30 they'll come out, so we got 2 minutes and we'll.
Oh, okay, then I might be thinking of last week.
Well, then let's assume right now, and I know what assuming does, but let's assume right now that Eckler is out.
I'm still not doing it. I mean, we can see the game plan that Kellen Moore has there, and it's to air the ball out. I mean, what did Herbert go for? 404 yards last week, 3 touchdowns, and not many of them were checkdowns. They were all big, deep passes down the field. He can throw the ball. I mean, maybe if you're relying on him falling in the end zone, if they get a 1st and goal on the 1 yard line, yes, but no, I'm not expecting 20 carries for 100 yards if that's what you're looking for.
Here's the probably the most skewed stat I have seen with one offense. When you look at week 1, it was almost a dead 50-50 split between Eckler and Kelly. But when Eckler is in the game, the Chargers are they throw the ball the 30, the worst in the league, 30th overall, 32 overall. But when Eckler is out of the game, they are the number 1 passing offense.
I will say Austin Eckler just tweeted out a photo of him in his jersey on the sideline, and all it had was the bolt emoji. Take that for what you will.
He
Sounds
also
like he's
Kelly. I don't
sounds
trust
like he's
right
gonna
now.
play.
No, Austin.
Sounds like he's gonna
slamming the
play.
guitar. Oh, he's ready.
I just think of like the Michael Scott quote, fool me once, strike 1, fool me twice, strike 3. No more Josh Kelly for me. I can't do it. I can't take it.
Yeah, I think I'm out on Josh Kelly as well. Nate, this game, anybody that is IDP worthy from either the Chargers is Bosa out in this game, or is the other Bosa?
Well, it's Joey Bosa with the Chargers. Yeah, he's out. Derwin James is out. Huge for IDP. Max Crosby has been limited on the week, so he's going to play and he'll be fine. But that's something to be concerned with. Nate Hobbs is another IDP option. I said earlier talking about Alontae Taylor as far as slot corners and how effective they can be in IDP scoring. Nate Hobbs has been one of the best in the league for the last 2 years, and he's out. So all of the injuries across the board, and this is important because the Chargers have, they have a bye week going into next week, so they can rest all these guys, assuming that they think they can beat a, Brian Hoyer. No, it's Aiden O'Connell in that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Aiden O'Connell led offense. So, yeah, there's a lot of IDP options out. There's still some good ones around. Obviously, like we said, Max Crosby. Vegas linebackers. I'm not as high on Robert Spillane or Devon Diablo. The Chargers have been pretty stingy against opposing linebackers as a whole. And then on the Chargers side, Eric Kendricks is back. I don't know how efficient he'll be, but Kenneth Murray's been very, very good from an IDP standpoint. Not the best linebacker in reality, but he's gaining value. And I think that has a lot to do with Eric Kendricks being with him. Alohi Gilman did not practice, got unlimited practice. So there's the walking wounded in this game.
Let me ask you this, controversial, but we saw how pissed off Devontae Adams was last week. If the Raiders lose today, which we expect them to lose, do we see any trade requests from Devontae Adams?
He's been pissed off before the season started. He got all the money, he gets all the targets, and he asked to get traded from Green. Basically, well, he asked to be in a better situation, I guess. And I mean, he's just unhappy everywhere. He's like Stephon Diggs. Diggs is unhappy in any situation given to this damn pre-mid.
Well, if he did get traded, where does he go? I mean, any speculation?
It's a big contract.
He probably wants to go to somewhere where he's going to win a Super Bowl, or at least has a chance, right?
I guess I'd let him come to Kansas City.
You would stoop to that. You would be the one to stoop to that level too.
To build a team of winners.
Yeah,
that's true.
But who are you willing to give up to get him in? Because he's pretty expensive there, Nate.
Well, that's the argument. The contract alone.
No such thing. Salary cap is made up. It doesn't exist. It's just all fallacy. It's NFL's money. Look, they can produce $1 billion Toy Story game, which is, I will say, I love it. I think it's perfect. I mean, the Chiefs, we've brought in all the extra revenue from Taylor Swift information. So that's going to bring the Chiefs at least a couple $100 million. And wait till they do a Toy Story game with the Chiefs where they have Mahomes and Kelsey as Toy Story figures. And every kid in America and every Taylor Swifties watching, it's, must-see TV.
Nate, we'll get to the Kansas City Swifties here shortly. Let's talk about New England and Dallas. It is the return of the Zeke to Dallas. Dallas is favored by 643.5 over under. Like I said, Zeke's returning to Dallas. Will he play?
I'm firing up Zeke everywhere. Every single league I've got him. I can see 20-25 carries out of this. Belichick loves to ground a pound, and I do think he knows exactly. He's been playing against these guys for 7 years. Who would you rather trust? The guy who knows exactly what defenders are going to do, or the unknown in Stevenson. Obviously, Stevenson's fantastic, but I think this is a no-brainer feed Zeke game.
So it sounds like Nate, you have Zeke as like an RB2.
Yeah, I've got him in my top 10 this week, so I think he's going to. I'm expecting a big game out of Zeke, 100 yards and at least a touchdown.
I don't think Zeke touches the ball more than 10 times. I think he's into pass block only.
Interesting. Even on the end zone, if they get into the red zone, they got to give him the ball to get him in the end zone.
Yeah, I think they get him a touchdown.
And let that Dallas crowd at least cheer for him in that end zone. And hopefully they'll have the Salvation Army bucket out there just one more time. Stacey, Dak, in the red zone, he's got the most attempts, but he's only completing 46 of them. Can you fire up Dak Prescott against this pretty stout New England D?
You know, if you have a better option, I think I'm going with the better option because what does Belichick like to do, right? He takes away your best option. Who's their best option? It's CeeDee Lamb. So
It's
I
not
just
Zeke.
no, it's not their best. Are you talking about Dak? You're
I
talking
know.
about
I'm just messing with you. Go
I'm
ahead.
confused. Like, wait a minute.
Gator's
No.
on everybody today. He's fired up.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I really see Belichick coming in and trying to like shut down their offense as much as he possibly can. And if you have a better option other than Dak, I'd say go with that. I mean, you probably didn't draft Dak as your number one quarterback. Probably didn't. I mean, there are probably some people out there who did, but you probably didn't. So you probably do have somebody else that you can throw in there. So I think this is just going to be one of those games. I don't like playing against New England. I just think, Belichick, he gets in there. He does take away your best option every single week. And I don't see it being any different in Dallas today.
Kyle, the Patriots are 6th in passing attempts with no Diggs. Can Mac Jones be super flex worthy this week?
Oh, super flex worthy. Huh. Yeah, oh man, I don't know. I think I'd rather honestly start Aiden O'Connell in a super flex league if I had to. Yeah.
All right,
better
Dave.
match up for me.
Would love to see Mac Jones get cut. That would be fantastic.
I know Dave agrees with me there. He hates Mac Jones.
I hate Mac Jones.
Real quick, we're gonna start 3 in a PPR: Swift, Kamara, Kyron, Moss, Javante. Stacy, go.
Swift, Kamara, and it's a toss up between Kyron and Moss. But Swift,
Nate.
Kamara, let's go with Moss. Yeah.
The full PPR, I'm more comfortable with Kamara than even in just a half, just getting him involved. So Swift, Kamara, and then the third, man, Kyron's usage is just hard to bypass, but so is Moss's. I'll go Kyron because just the touchdown upside that I think that he may possess over Anthony Richardson pilfering touchdowns away from Moss, but that's close.
Dave, you agree with those 3?
Did I read that P. Ryan is out today? Or maybe I misread that. If that's the case, I'm going to go Javante. But otherwise, it's Swift and Moss are no-brainers for me. I'm probably going to go Kyron just because of potential volume. I'm just unsure about what Kamara's going to do on the field today.
I just looked it up, and I'm not seeing anything.
Gotcha. I might have
as
misread
as
that.
P. Ryan. So, so going back to the Patriots-Dallas game, I know this is your team right here, Dave. So, of the Patriots, who's going to see the targets? Can Kendra Bourne turn target percentage into fantasy points? Wide receiver 31 on the season. But can we do anything with him?
Look, I mean, we saw him flash in week 1. He did a great job, obviously. But the only one that I would trust is Hunter Henry because he just gets those red zone looks. He's probably only going to get 40, 50 yards, but he's pretty safe for a touchdown. So that's the only guy I'm really trusting there. And obviously, as I mentioned, Zeke, I think today is going to feast.
Nate, who does Bill Belichick shut down in the passing game or running game? Is it CD? Is it Pollard? Neither.
Well, like Stacy said, which choice is that going to be easier to try to shut down CD? And no, Dak doesn't have, but it's also a Brandon Cooks revenge game. So maybe Brandon Cooks does that. Yeah, every game I saw someone say every game for Brandon Cooks is a revenge game when you played for every team. So I would try to stop Pollard, but I think it might be easier to stop CD.
All right, who's on the IDP side of the ball for this game that we are plugging in, and who are we leaving out our roster?
Dallas's offensive line's pretty stout, but Matthew Judon is always a pretty good option to go with. Your linebackers for New England, I don't really care for any of them. I'm not a big Juwan Bentley fan as far as in this specific matchup. On the Dallas side, there's plenty. Like I said, Micah Parsons earlier, that's going to be the key matchup, him versus Zeke, because that's what the beat writers in New England think, is that Zeke's going to be heavily involved in trying to stop Micah Parsons, and it wouldn't shock him to have both him and Ramondre out there at the same time for that effect. But at linebacker, I mean, Leighton Vander Esch is an option, especially against New England, who should, I think, probably try to run the ball a little bit more than the six most passing attempts. And no Trayvon Diggs, so you're probably going to have J-Ron Curse up at the box, leaving, I don't want to say Donovan Wilson useless at deep, but I like J-Ron Curse to have a good week, surprisingly, in his return.
We just got the update that Mingo is going to be out, so it is going to be Adam Thielen, DJ Chark there in Carolina. Quick question here from Hunter again. Josh Kelly, Najee Harris, Kyle.
Oh, man. Oh,
it doesn't get any uglier than this question, I don't feel.
I know. I'm going to have to go Najee Harris. Where you drafted him, you have to go Najee. I know you want to vomit.
Dave?
Yeah, you unfortunately have to. That's gross. You're probably 0-3. Sorry, Hunter.
We have finally found somebody that Dave will put Najee Harris in over.
Yeah, it's not by much though. It's not a great option, man. Hit the waiver wire. There'll be something out there.
Alrighty, on to San Francisco. I'm sorry, Arizona at San Francisco. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this game. San Francisco's favored by 14. It's 43.5 is the over-under. San Francisco probably will get the 43 by themselves. Keontae Ingram is the only one that you have listed on here that is out, Nate.
Mm-hmm. Questionable, even.
Okay, of Carolina, go ahead. I'm sorry, of Arizona, go ahead and take both sides of the ball. Who are you starting? IDP or offensively for Arizona outside of James Conner?
Talking to me?
Oh, I guess that was that the answer? Yeah.
It's Arizona side. I mean, it's James Conner. Is Rondale Moore DFS boomer bust type play is the one question I would have for anything, because if there's no Keontae Ingram, we saw him utilized in the backfield last week. He is explosive when the ball gets in his hands. I don't know if I would want to start him over too many of the other running backs. Super deep type flex option. But San Francisco, it's all systems go for pretty much everybody. You're not going to sit any of the guys, really. You're going to start. Is Purdy starting for you, Stacy, in a one quarterback league?
It depends on my other options. I'm probably not starting in a one quarterback, no. But if you've had some injuries, maybe you're dealing with a Deshaun Watson situation, he's not playing, like that. Yeah, then fire him up. Absolutely. I don't have any issue with you putting him in there. I just doubt that he's probably your starter in a one QB.
That's gross.
I think the Cardinals are going to surprise people, man. Like they played pretty good last week against a pretty stout Cowboys defense. So everyone's expecting them to lose. I think it'll be closer than people envision.
Yeah, it goes right. It goes back to what Nate was saying earlier. We have this vision in our head of what the Cardinals should be, and the Cardinals players we're not that team. We're in every single game, and they have at least hung with the teams that they have played as well. So Justin Simmons is out, Deshaun Elliott out. Just quick heads up there from our fearless leader there, Jorge, giving us those updates. Like you said, though, if you have the 49ers players, you're probably plugging them in with the thoughts of the Arizona that we have in our heads. What we expect is 49ers to get up big. Can this be an Elijah Mitchell? Is he flex worthy for this game, Kyle?
Yeah, I think you could if you don't have any better options, because I do see in game script that San Francisco should win this. They should cover their spread and maybe even plus that, which would give some Mitchell some garbage time. But by saying that, it is a risky move to make, because these Cardinals, they've been surprising me a lot. They have not bowed down to any team they've been playing. They've been playing their hearts out. So with that being said, if you want me to answer it, you could, but it is a risky flex spot.
Nate, is there anybody on the 49ers that you are, defensive IDP wise, that you are not starting against this Arizona team?
No, the name that volatile Drake Jackson opposite Nick Bosa is just too up and down. I think people saw that week one multiple sack game, a little concerning that he can replicate that each week. I wouldn't. I would start Nick Bosa. I'd start Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga. So pretty much all the guys that you're going to start. I feel like you can, especially if Arizona is, I heard someone use this adjective, plucky, against, and I don't know what that means, but it sounds fitting for what they've done.
Let's move on to the Sunday night game, and we are going to talk about the Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. Oh, wait, no, Aaron Rodgers isn't. It's the Patrick Mahomes, Zach Wilson Sunday night game.
Ugh.
Ugh. All right, so I'm not even going to ask Nate. We know where Nate's on in this game. Kansas City is favored by 8, 41.5, over, under. Faith, I see you. Club Fantasy and Frames, thank you for having Stacy and I yesterday on your start sit. We've got to return the favor and get y'all over here. Yes, and it is Team Kelsey. None of this Swifty BS that I know for a fact. This lady right in the middle here, Stacy, is going to bring up all the Swifty stuff here in just a minute, just for you, Faith. I know she's going to do it. Stacy.
Yeah.
Are you capable of starting Garrett Wilson with this Kansas City, against Kansas City tonight with Zach Wilson being the QB?
No, honestly, no. I mean, I tend to draft a little more receiver heavy, as you guys know. So I usually do have a better option, especially in this situation. And I hate benching him. It's not like I am excited about this, but maybe you went and picked up Josh Palmer off the waiver wire this week, like I told you to go do. And, I would throw him in over Garrett Wilson at this point. I think it's going to be a beatdown. I think it's going to be ugly. And, I just don't trust. I don't trust Garrett not Garrett Wilson. I don't trust Zach Wilson one bit. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. Let's put it that way, which is not far.
Dave, besides Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, which you are obviously, if you have them, you're starting them, period, the end. Who else are you comfortable starting from the Chiefs?
I don't know, man. I mean, Pacheco has not been as on fire as what I expected. I was thinking he was going to take off from where he left last year. They're using CEH more, surprisingly. I think he got a couple of goal line carries last week as well. Mm-hmm. It's really just, I hate to say it. I mean, obviously I trust the Chiefs offense, but it's just Kelce and Mahomes. There's no one that I'm overly confident in firing up there.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time figuring out what receiver on the Chiefs is going to be even flex worthy at this point, because it's a different player every week. Kyle, I know you did a DFS lineup for this game. You didn't have but one player from the Jets on your DFS lineup. Do you trust Breece or Dalvin in this game at all?
I can't. No, that front seven there in Kansas City. I mean, I talked about it on that short video there, that their offensive line in New York is just very subpar. I mean, they should, the Chiefs, and Nate will probably be able to get into this a little bit more, but they should be able to tee off and get to Zach Wilson. Or even stop the run game, I should say, because you asked me a running game question. But yeah, they should be able to stuff the run as well.
It's a shame. I thought Zach Wilson was going to, use this as his sort of, second chance, if you will, and take off and be the Zach Wilson that everyone thought he was going to be when he was drafted, second overall, I think it was. But no, he's just not performed, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to understand how he sat there and had a offseason with Aaron Rodgers there, and then still we have the exact same person. Jorge, Nick Bolton, Tony Adams are out. IDP side of this game, I mean, the Jets are just phenomenal front seven. Who are we not starting for the Jets or Chiefs, IDP wise?
Wow, not L'Jarius Sneed, probably not starting. He was a surprise last year. He's probably not one. Let me pull up my rankings here while we're talking. Let me talk about who we are starting. Yeah,
there you go.
That's such a long list. That's why I wanted you to tell me who you're not starting first. But go ahead.
All right. So defensive line for the Chiefs. Let's start there. George Karlaftis, defensive line. Excuse me. George Karlaftis, Chris Jones, even Mike Dana at defensive tackle has been a really good beneficiary of the former two drawing a lot of attention. No Nick Bolton, insert Drew Tranquil. Justin Reed at defensive back. On the flip side for the Jets, Quinnen Williams always, CJ Mosley always at linebacker, along with Quincy Williams also at linebacker. Those are the guys that I'm rolling with for this game.
Yeah, I wish Nate was here for. I got one last question I want to ask him if he wants to jump back in here. Good. Stacy said she's not starting Garrett Wilson. You know your Chiefs team the best. Would you even have Garrett Wilson as a flex play in this game against that Chiefs defense, that secondary?
I mean, that's what I have him relegated to, is as strictly as a flex. It's not ideal, but we saw last week that even with limited opportunities that he has the ability to get in the end zone. The Chiefs have been really, really good defensively, a lot better than I even expected going into this game. And the matchup just isn't ideal. But if there's one, I guess there's just too much wow factor in Garrett Wilson that you hate to sit him and get burnt. And I know that that's such a stupid narrative, but that always does. The FOMO approach sucks whenever it comes to players like Garrett Wilson. I sat Drake London today, and I know he scored, but I still feel like that's the smarter play. I would rather start Garrett Wilson over Drake London.
Well, I was just fixing to ask you. I've got this exact choice in one of my leagues. I've got Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, Devontae Smith. Are you starting Garrett Wilson over any of those four? Or even flexing him over any of those four?
I don't think so. The only one maybe would be Ayuk, only because he, throughout practices all week, he was a little banged up here and there. And I think that even he had a full practice in Friday. So I'm not too overly concerned, I guess. Yeah, that's an interesting name that I didn't think 4 weeks in we would be saying Garrett Wilson is a no start over those, wide receiver 2/3s.
I think you have to, right? I mean, how many targets has Garrett Wilson had each game? It's got to be at least 7 or 8, right?
He's got 5, 8, and 9.
Yeah, I thought he was around 20 something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 20 total with 12 receptions and 165 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He's the only guy that Zach Wilson's going to be looking for. I like that target share. I don't know. And they're going to be trailing. They're going to be trailing, so they're going to have to be throwing the ball. You got
here's the thing, Dave. Here's the thing, Dave. You talked about having a grocery store. You get your target share, but you're getting it from like a Food Lion versus your Publix or your favorite local expensive grocery store. So you get the targets, but you're getting Food Lion targets.
Yeah.
Tons of the Whole Foods of grocery stores.
There you go. See?
All right, you hit on the IDP side of things. Did you finish off your IDP side before Nate jumped back in?
Yes.
Okay. Nate, anything you want to add with your Chiefs in this game?
Nope, not really. I think you guys did a great job of tempering expectations for a matchup that somehow, I don't know how they're going to get over the 41.5, but it's not good.
Yeah, it's ugly. The Monday night game, I believe, is this one here. Seattle at the Giants. Seattle is favored by 1.5, over under of 47. Nate, who is out in this game that means anything to us?
Pretty much the majority of the Seattle secondary is out, so that's not exactly ideal. Kobe Bryant, Trey Brown, Artie Burns, the rotational pieces of some concern. Charles Cross is out. We know that it's been that way for a while now with the tackles both being out, but yet they've still maintained protection for Geno. And then for the Giants, Andrew Thomas was ruled out, and Saquon I don't think has been ruled out completely, but he's not going to play. I'd have to venture to say.
Yeah. Can we get a couple running backs to actually play this year? I'm just need a few. Just need a couple of them. Seattle is allowing the 8th most points to quarterback. Ooh, can we comfortably talk about Daniel Dimes Jones? Dave?
No, he's looking like Daniel Penny right now. Like he's doing terrible, man. And plus you got Matt Breida there. I mean, that was the safety blanket for Daniel Jones, was those checkdowns to Saquon, and it's looking very likely that he's out. And Breida is just a terrible running back. So,
but I mean, Andy Dalton just went for 361 and 2 TDs on this Seattle D.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But Daniel Jones has the potential to give us week 1 performances. At least Andy Dalton. He's good for 250 and 1 or 2 in the air, but that's just not. Daniel Jones has implosion. He can crumble faster than that Titanic what's that thing? The
Oh,
people
the
that that went down. You know, that's Daniel Jones. You know, he'll just absolutely kill your fantasy team.
Yeah, I mean, breaking news, real quick. Oh wait, never mind. That's not Kyle Pitts. I was going to say Kyle Pitts just caught a ball, but that wasn't Kyle Pitts. So we'll move on past the alleged breaking news right there. Kyle, the Giants have allowed an RB1 each of the first 3 games. Is this Kenneth Walker's week to be an RB1?
Oh, man. Yeah, I think so. The game script's probably going to have them up in this game. They're going to probably run the clock out. He should get a lot of volume. So I do think Kenneth Walker, we'll see those Kenneth Walker type numbers. And I'm not sold yet on Zach Charbonnet, like stealing some of his carries. He did look good last week, but I still think they're going to roll with Walker.
All right, Stacy, same type of deal. Seattle is allowed an RB2 each week. Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, hello. RB2.
Neither. I wouldn't start either one of these guys. I mean,
No.
Yeah, I really don't know how if you have to start one of these guys, hang it up, man. Like, it is week 4. If you got to start Breida or Brightwell, things have not gone well for you. Hang on. If you give me a second, I'm just going to pull this up real quick so I can take a look. Yeah, Matt Breida over here coming in with 31 whole yards, guys. Wow, 31.
With 80
is that he has a touchdown, so that's great. But yeah, I don't want to start either one of these guys. Gary Brightwell's got 10. He's averaging 2 yards per attempt. These aren't numbers that inspire confidence in me at all. And yeah, you've got the job, but what have you done with it? Nothing. So I can't start either one of these guys.
Yeah, so we know that the running back position is all sorts of discombobulated in New York. So Jorge, who can you trust out of the wide receivers in New York?
Wan'Dale Robinson.
Nah, really?
No, trust. We're talking about trust here. We're talking about trust. Maybe Darius Slayton. Maybe more Rondell.
Jorge almost went all Allen Iverson on me instead of practice. Trust.
That's
trust?
Right.
We're talking about trust.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not trusting anybody for the Giants. So,
are you live?
Darren Waller?
No.
I mean, we expected Darren Waller to absolutely smash it with Daniel Jones this year, and it just has not happened.
But that's one you could trust over the receivers is Waller.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I do have him at 12, which I don't know if that's saying a lot, but yeah.
Seattle's allowed the 7th most yards to tight ends, but they haven't allowed a TD to tight ends.
I don't like it, but that's your only receiving option I feel confident in, right?
Ask me how I feel. I have Daniel Jones and Scott Fishbowl, and it's just sickening.
So Kyle, be maybe a little optimistic. Is as sickening as Daniel Jones has been. Let's remember the teams that he has played, unfortunately. And it's not adding anything to Daniel Jones by intent, but it is he's taken on the Cowboys and the 49ers.
Yeah.
Kind of maybe two of the best defenses in the NFL. Granted, he had a 32 quarterback rating and a 64 quarterback rating in those 2 games. Not really ideal. But when he played the Arizona Cardinals, a team that has shut down other quarterbacks, not many, he had 321, 2 touchdowns, 59 yards on the ground, and a touchdown. I would equate this defense more towards the Arizona side than I would San Francisco or Dallas. That being said, I don't like any of the wide receivers. Hell, I don't even like the tight end, really. It's kind of a who might just get lucky. It was Isaiah Hodgins in week 2, and it's been Paris Campbell and Darius Slayton for the other 2 weeks as far as significant, if you will, target share, which is 6 targets in the game. I mean, it's gross.
It's ugly.
I mean, the only thing I could say is when they get Saquon back, for some reason, Daniel Jones looks much better than he does now. So maybe Saquon just has a lot to do with Daniel Jones.
What were you going to say, Stace?
I was just going to say Wan'Dale hasn't had a chance to disappoint us yet. So, and he did get 5 targets in the last game. So, and that's his first game back from his injury. So, I mean, if gun to my head, if I had to pick one of those, yeah, and it's not Waller, yeah, I'd go with Wandale.
Look at you too.
All right, before we get to the IDP side, let's get to this super C and B question right here. Need a tight end, Njoku or Ertz, or any of these streaming options? Logan Thomas, Everett, Kincaid, Chig, Schultz, Otten, Knox, Hurst. This is a PPR. Let's go around the frames real quick and answer this one. Stacy, starting with you.
I can't believe all these people are streaming options that you have. I can't, like, one, I would probably go with one of those before I would go with Njoku or Ertz. Njoku's got that issue with the burn issues, even though he is playing in new quarterback in situations. So no, Ertz, not against the Niners. Thanks. I think I'm looking at either Kincaid, Knox, or Hurst in the PPR for me. And those three I would choose before I do the other guys.
Jorge.
So I have both Everett and Hurst in my start column, so flip a coin. I'd probably go Everett, though, over Hurst. So.
This is not going to be the answer you're looking for, super C and B, because I would go – I think I'm going to give Chig the opportunity this week. I think no Treylon, DeAndre Hopkins hasn't exactly inspired much. And if you're looking for someone of the list of this name, someone that has the ability to stretch the field and do something with the ball, Chig is probably the one based off of last year, because it sure as hell ain't based off anything he's done this year or Tennessee as a whole. Kyle?
I was bouncing back and forth on Kincaid and Everett just because that Miami Buffalo game.
Every person, except
just because you can't trust Logan Thomas. Njoku's got the burn. I mean, that hurts if you get tackled with burns. I don't know if I don't know about that one. But so for me, it's come down to Everett and Kincaid. It's a high scoring game there in the Miami Buffalo. It's projected to be like 54. So that's what intrigues me, but something's just pulling me to Gerald Everett against the Raiders there. I know he hasn't really done much, but I think this is the game for Gerald Everett. If he's going to find the end zone, it's got to be today.
Yeah. Well, that's hard.
It is.
I want to lean Schultz here because I just think that he should be getting a little bit more targets, especially like we've talked about with the pass rush there from Pittsburgh. Schultz should be able to get some underneath targets there. God, I don't like any of these options, but I think, like Kyle said, Kincaid would be my second option, just because of how high scoring that game is going to be. One more from JJ. He asked this question earlier. We were all on Garrett Wilson. Now that Watson's out, is it Cooper or is it? I'm sorry, we were all on Cooper. Now that Watson's out, are we changing from Cooper to Wilson? Nate.
I don't like that. I hate that so much because it makes sense to pivot because we don't know what DTR is going to do. And I know what Zach Wilson's going to do, which is not good. So maybe that's the answer is Amari Cooper still. And with Baltimore secondary being so banged up, let's just go with that. I'm going to stick with Amari Cooper in this situation.
You with that, Jorge?
I'll take Garrett Wilson. I think Zach Wilson has had one good pass each of the games of the season, and all of them have been to Garrett Wilson. So I'm anticipating one good pass. Garrett Wilson.
High hopes.
Good, or could be an interception that Garrett Wilson steals.
Both have been touchdowns. So
they're both touchdowns. I get it. All right, let's talk about this IDP side of the Seattle New York Giants game, and then we'll go ahead and go get our lineups taken care of as well. Let's start with you, Jorge.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Just going to the IDP side of the ball for Seattle, the Giants. Yeah.
Bobby Wagner. First of all, I like Uchenna Nwosu, defensive lineman for the Seahawks. Bobby Wagner, even Jordan Brooks to a certain degree. Julian Love, defensive back for the Giants. I don't like any defensive linemen. I like Bobby Okereke. Micah McFadden, high missed tackle rate or efficiency, but damn it, he's hitting though. The tackle efficiency and the missed tackle rate are kind of like balancing each other out there. Pinnock in a defensive back in a pinch, but even then, I'm staying away from that. Yeah, Nate, what do you think?
I second your Micah McFadden talk. I mean, he has more tackles than Okereke. So from that standpoint, yeah. And you throw in the fact that he's got 5 tackles for a loss, which if you look at every linebacker in the NFL, I believe that's first or second if you consider edge rushers in that equation, which you have to. But yeah, he's been phenomenal in that. I second your Uchenna Nwosu. In fact, actually, I'm moving him up even higher as I speak. Now with the guarantee that Andrew Thomas is out, it screams opportunity there. So no, that's everything, fellas, ladies, gents.
That sounds like a wrap on the games. Are you starting Tank Dell or Cortland Sutton? I mean, we know where Stacy stands on this, but go ahead and let the good people know, Stacy, where are you at?
Tank Dell, baby. Start him up. 251 yards. Let's go.
Jorge.
I'm sorry, did you say 251 yards?
He's 251 yards.
Oh, I thought you meant that's what he's going to do today.
He might. He might.
Yeah, Tank Dell.
Who says he won't?
Tank Dell. Kyle.
This is true.
Gosh, yeah.
Don't go against the grain. Don't go against the grain.
I'm going to side with Stacy. I'm going to side with, I love Cortland Sutton. You know that. But Tank Dell, he's proven it. He's proven it.
Yes, it is Tank Dell for me as well. Nate, tell the good people, is it Tank Dell? Is it Cortland Sutton?
It is Tank Dell. I do love Cortland Sutton, though. So
see, yeah, I was hoping somebody would take Sutton just to make me feel better, but
I do. I think that what he's done the last couple of weeks. I mean, his target share. I mean, he almost had 30% last week, so the upside is definitely there. But I think that everything kind of goes back to what you guys were saying earlier, like with Ryan mentioning just the offensive line woes and what that will lead to pass funnels seems to direct to Tank Dell. And let's not forget, this is a guy that when CJ Stroud asked them to draft. So we shouldn't be shocked by this, that he actually is going to hyper target or at least target somebody that he asked to have on the field. I love Nico too. I feel like I love a lot of people. I love all you guys. So that's good.
Well, you're from Kansas City. You have a lot of love.
No, I do.
Oh, that was sweet. Let's get the hell out of here. Kyle, tell the good people where they can find you and what you got going on.
KZ1180 on Twitter. Also, look out for my 2-minute videos. Gator and I are going to put together some Sunday Night Football FanDuel Showdown lineups on top of the Monday night. We're going to try to get them out early for you, so look for that on fantasyandframes.com or on the YouTube channel, Fantasy and Frames.
You released a sex tape?
Did he just ask?
He just jumps in just to do that. I love Nate for that. Stacy, tell the good people where they can find you, what you got going on.
I don't know how to follow that.
Follow that up?
There is
How do you follow that up? That's the show.
We're all out. Yeah.
We're done. Get out of here. I'm at Stacy_Perez83. You guys, you can find me on Wednesday nights, 8:00 on our Dynasty 365 show. Let's go.
Boss man, tell the good people, let them know.
You can follow me at Jorge B. Edwards. Rather, you follow at Fantasy Frames on Twitter. Follow us across all social media. You can catch me on Shoot the Gap at 10 p.m. Eastern starting this week on Fantasy and Frames Wednesdays, as well as right back here on the pregame show each and every Sunday.
You can find me at FantasyJ77, like Jorge said. More importantly, find Fantasy and Frame at Fantasy and Frames over there on Twitter. Go to the Fantasy and Frames website at fantasyandframes.com to see all of our articles. To see, we've got the merch store is now up. Jorge did a great job getting that up and this past week. Some really cool items in there, from the dogs to the kids to the adults. All that stuff is on there. The articles are on there. Our IDP start sits, our offensive start sits. There's just so much information being funneled out to there. We also are now doing the Tuesday night waiver wire show. We have the Thursday night, I believe it's Thursday night, if I'm not mistaken, Jorge, where you have the mailbag show as well. Of course, the Sunday morning right here. And then, like Jorge brought up, the FIF Wednesdays at 8:00 is Dynasty 365. At 9:00 is the Fourth and Frame show. And then at 10, topping the night off, your nightcap is Shoot the Gap with Nate, Jorge, and Hollywood Titan. We are changing his name this year, though, because I don't care what the Gators did yesterday, the week prior. They beat the Vols. He is now known as Hollywood Gator for the rest of this season. I told him that the other night. Guys, great show. Had fun. go get your lineup set. Nate, you want to jump back in here and tell the good people where they can find you and what you got going on?
Sure. At Nate Markham, obviously Wednesday nights, the final show of the evening is Shoot the Gap. And then throughout the week, I may jump onto the mailbag show, any of the start sit shows, pretty much anywhere you guys want to find me besides in Kyle's 2-minute video.
Hey, you're welcome.
Well, please.
Now I get the reference.
Please.
Now I get the reference.
No.
That's funny.
Please, no.
That's funny.
Please, no.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad you picked up on that. That was
my
the slow
Lord.
play. But
See,
yeah,
I told you,
all right.
Gator. I told you when I joined this team,
No.
I was going to be the one, not you
No.
anymore.
Yep. I'm muting you, Mikhail. I'm muting you. Stop. Don't feed Nate Markham any more information.
And by the way,
Guys.
folks, if things go sideways for you, there's only one thing you can do this week and every week.
Oh boy.
But not that I'm anticipating that, but all you got to do right now. That's right, folks.
Oh, my Lord. As always, remember, fantasy football is a game of strategy, skill, and luck. May your roster shine bright. May your instincts be on point and your predictions reign supreme. Until next week, 9 a.m., we are out.